Hey V, line them up.
What up, y'all? We got a surprise CBR episode with the legendary Trooper Walsh and the legendary Tim Morris,
Yes,
and
sir.
we couldn't be happier to bring this to y'all.
Hey, can
Um,
we
and
couldn't
we
think of a
appreciate
better,
them so much for coming through.
Yeah.
better. We couldn't think of a better Christmas gift.
Yeah, this this is probably the best Christmas gift I think I could have asked for. I know that we've been trying to figure out get this to occur, and this is one of those things where patience and people having the patience on their end to do it. So
Mhm.
we are excited to have them here. So we want to introduce Trooper Walsh, and we also got Tim Morris back again. So show them
Yes,
some love.
legendary affair.
The legends. Uh, so first of all, get into this. We're gonna let Trooper start off, and we're gonna let him tell you some of his history as a chondro keeper, some of his accolades.
Hmm. Okay.
So give it to us where it started, Troop, with the your initial acquisition of your
Well,
first condo.
the first chondro I ever saw was in a private collection in New Jersey, I think in 1974. And I saw that animal, and within a week, I had started cleaning out all my other animals just to make a chondro collection. That was fun, except, dealing with all these the imports back then are worse off than, at least appearance wise, compared to what we got today coming in. So,
Tell about the condition that your first two arrived in.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
My first two chondros I got from a group out in California. It was in February. It was sent in a styrofoam box with cardboard on it, and it had been smashed. And these snakes were both literally frozen. And I thought they were dead, but I slowly warmed them up, and they survived. One of those ended up being the female that produced my first clutch. So that was
Popsicles
fun.
to popping.
Say again?
It's from popsicles to popping.
Yeah. It definitely is growing. There's just such beauty and such diversity in what they can look like.
So Trooper, can you tell us about your history when you first started with snakes in general, and then when you went to start working at the zoo?
Yeah. Well, when I first got interested, I was living in Panama at the time, and we had boa constrictors and all sorts of stuff in our backyard. It was a jungle, literally. And what fascinated me is all the adults. I was 6 or 7 years old or something like that, but all the adults were like afraid of snakes. And I was like, why are you afraid of these? It just sort of got my curiosity going. And my dad, actually, both my parents ended up keeping some reptiles themselves. My mother had a pair of tortoises, redfoots, and my dad was working with me on the Brazilian rainbow boas. He had a couple that were set out for him. So I'm really fortunate. Without their support, I would have been nowhere. My dad was like, he built all my cages and my bigger cages and such.
Wow.
So that's how I got into it. And I started working at the zoo, I think, in 75. And I decided the zoo needs to have chondros, so I got them into chondros, which gave me all sorts of new avenues. Working with zoos and such of those, because they just weren't around. They just weren't there.
So being on the early end of that, of like the helping basically importation with zoos and whatnot. It was a New Jersey zoo.
This is a private collection in New Jersey.
Okay, it's private collection in New Jersey. How did you? But you said you so which zoo did you start working for? Did you say
National Zoo, Smithsonian
National Zoo? Okay.
Zoo. Yeah.
When you were first getting those chondros in, like going through them, before you guys had the locality differences, Just can you give us a generalization of what you were seeing when you were opening these boxes, good and bad?
With the imports, you mean?
Yeah, and how would you characterize the imports since they didn't have locality tags back then?
Well, first off, if I were starting a collection today, I would probably keep any imports in a separate room, from my breeders and my captive statuses. Biggest problem was respiratory issues, with the early imports. But that kind of stopped when Cameron DePedalin, started bringing them in. So
Okay.
I actually visited his place out there in Indonesia years ago. Fascinating guy. So zoos, at first, since they weren't in captivity much, the zoos were really interested in setting up colonies of them, and so I was able to work with them that way. And most of the animals that I got as captive born were with Gene Bissett at Ophiological Services. We worked together on those for a number of years.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So when you first started importing the chondros, I know you said you work with rainbow boas. What else were you probably one of the first in the U.S. to start working with
Yeah.
on a large scale?
Well, probably Brazilian rainbows. I didn't know of any births. Probably the ones we had. I'm sure there were someplace. That and the emerald tree boas. I had a good connection with a friend of mine that went down and physically collected a group of animals, which we ended up working with, and that was cool.
How much larger were the emeralds and the chondros, the imports that you were getting then compared to now?
In the past, I'd say the bigger animals were the more popular, which is common with a lot of stuff, like that.
Do you mean the difference between the condition of the chondros?
Right.
Yeah.
Imported back then versus imported now?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know, because I don't know when the last time would have seen an imported chondro.
Yeah. So that's probably true. So that difference is probably start.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is, once you started working at the National Zoo, what was the husbandry like, and what did you have to work with as far as equipment to get your first clutches? Well, really to get them all started. Like, how did that work?
I gotta think back. I used a lot of industrial tubs and things. I'd take them from the commissary. They deliver fruit and stuff, and they got turned into chondro cages. So we had an exhibit that was spacious and had natural, foliage and stuff. But the stuff behind the lines are all pretty barren, which it worked out. I mean, some animals did better in that conditions than others. Yeah.
With you having so you get your first chondro, and with such limited amount of information, like y'all didn't have books and the YouTube like we have now. How did you go about kind of learning on your own, or learning, doing a trial by error? How was that? Being a keeper first.
Well, I think what got me going with the chondros is I bred what are those things? The tree boas.
The Amazon tree boas, cooks, or emeralds?
No,
Annulateds?
Annulateds, yeah.
Annulateds.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that. I just don't remember.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was just going to mention, a lot of what they used back then were, aquariums, simple light setups. There were no thermostats.
Yeah.
Maybe dimmers. Do you guys use dimmers back then and regulate? So Do you remember how you learned about like what parameters to use, like how to regulate humidity
Trial
or
and error.
temperatures?
Just trial and error.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, one thing I remember a trooper telling me very early on, and I think this is one of the reasons for his, broad success, not only in chondros, but the Komodos and everything else, is that he was always very tuned into the animals. And one thing that he told me very early on was, I think I was asking him, as comes up frequently, I'm sure, with new keepers, what temperatures, what, basking site temperature, what range of temperatures,
Yeah.
and he always said it a couple times, watch the animal. If it's always on the warm side, turn it down, or turn it up a little bit. If it's always on the cool side, the animals always tell you what they need. And I think that's a lot of what probably led you guys early on. I mean, because there was no information back then. So.
Yep. And we went through a lot of chondros, the wild
Yeah.
caught early on. So.
And veterinary medicine wasn't very much a thing back then.
Exactly.
Was there any treatments that they?
Well, like for RI, you use chloramphenicol, stuff like that.
Okay. What is that? Is that?
It's an antibiotic.
It's an antibiotic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
How did you?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. My question was, how did you know how to dose it at that time?
Well, the vets at the zoo were, they inoculated all kinds of animals. So it was just based on weight, really, and a guess. And I don't think we ever had any problems with that.
Mm.
Did it seem to work? Did that antibiotic seem to help out?
Some animals, yeah. I was telling Tim that the first two females that I got in, one of those two that came in frozen actually produced my first clutch. So
he said
that
it
was
came
really
in frozen.
Yeah. So on the lineages, that would be 276 probably, I think. If that's the female, the 1976 being the date of that first litter. Is that right? 76?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, breeding in 76 with hatching in 77.
Do you want to run that story about that was your first chondro, one of your first chondros, right?
Yep.
That was the first litter. That was
Okay.
hatched out at your house, not at the zoo, correct?
Correct.
That's part of
Yeah.
And that was maternal incubated or?
No, artificial.
Artificial. Do you remember what you used for an incubator?
10-gallon tank with gravel on the bottom, heat tape underneath, and this, the sliding top ones.
Wow.
So,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And the eggs, did you just put them on in like a substrate of any sort?
I put them on top of like sand or something, but I set them up at two different temperatures. The ones that hatched were the lower temperatures, the others were a little too high.
Right.
They go
right.
full term.
And did you seal the whole thing up to maintain humidity? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trial and error.
So when you first started, there's a lot of trial and error, and you figured it out for a lot of people. How many iterations and different things did you try before you had a streamlined process? And like around how long did that take? And what are some of the things that you tried?
Gee.
So what did you do to dial in like the incubation protocol?
Just based on other animals that are, same size.
Now, at what point, I remember when one of the first papers you did was a study on monitoring maternal temperatures and then trying to replicate that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that played a role in sort of shifting how you dealt with artificial incubation.
Yeah, I think they're one of the most efficient, incubators, of all the snakes out there, really.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty awesome.
So as time went on, you started branching out, because I know there's a lot of guys that older guys that tell us that you sold them animals. When did you get comfortable with letting animals go, and what was your standard for an established animal at that time?
Well, with the captive born ones, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, anytime you're starting with a new species, I've found that it's beneficial to start with babies, raise them up, and from there you get to your first, second generations, and they're better off than if you just went straight using them wild caughts.
But I remember, I think the question he was trying to get at is when you, and I don't know whether it was you, Eugene, or a combination of the two, but one of the big advertising things that you guys put out at the time, this was 90s, early 90s, be interesting to see if you remember when you started. A big thing for Eugene was, all of these have shed at least twice and fed at least 10 times. It was like that 10 years sight feeding was sort of the benchmark of when you felt comfortable, or
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We let go some early on to more experienced people, but if it's just someone off the street, it would be probably a little bit too iffy with them,
And how did you figure out like sales? I mean, there were no, like, I don't even think notes from Noah were around back then. I mean,
No.
And I guess once you started working at the zoos, you were probably networking with them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I guess first question would be, what percentage would you estimate some of your early progeny going to the private sector versus institutions?
What's the question in there?
How many of your early progeny or offspring went to, say, institutions versus private collections?
I would say private collections more at that point. It wasn't until we got them national that they were brought to the attention by the zoos.
Now, were some of the ones that came in for national, did you guys import them through the zoo, or did you put some of your personal stock in there to get it going?
We didn't import anything ourselves directly, but it was a mix of the ones we did, and what you're saying.
Well, because I know eventually there was a sort of a blending of the Trooper Walsh and the NZP, and sometimes some of your litters had some NZP accession, and the same clutch could have some individuals with TW.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't purchase animals from the zoo, but when we tallied them out, like to Bissett or something, I just buy them from him.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how being able to use both the private and the zoo really made it more effective in trying to delineate the.
But you were the only one to really get away with that there.
What do you mean?
I don't think you were ever, like, when I first started volunteering there, I was told that because National Zoo was a federal institution, that unlike, other zoos, private and municipal, city zoos, you were forbidden to sell to the public.
From the zoo?
From the zoo.
Well, if it was an established breeder like Bissett, and one of the things that I had to do whenever I was bringing in new people is I had to go to their facilities, look at their record systems, their setups and stuff, and do a report.
Wow.
It was for zoos too. I had to do that.
Wow.
Hey, Tim, he said, True would say he had the juice. He had to pop his collar a little bit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's something I didn't know.
Wow.
But that got shut down after a while, I think. Even when I left, I don't even think, like, Robin could never sell an animal to Eugene.
She could because, again, Bissett was already okayed.
So he was a known business through. Okay.
Yeah, we had 2 or 3, institutions and people we worked with. We did that with.
So you kind of backdoored some things through Eugene.
Yeah.
That's creative.
Yep.
I'm glad this is so long ago that the statute of limitations is up.
Yeah, really.
We're beyond all that now,
Well, with the animals at the zoo,
the feds, y'all do not have the right to use the info in this interview.
This man said my contracts be fresh as hell when the feds is watching.
For real.
They're coming for you, man.
Hey man, I think that's probably a lot of stuff especially when you look at like a lot of our captive bred species that we have in the U.S. A lot of that stuff had to come out of zoos and make its way into private collections.
Well, but again, in private zoos and municipal zoos, I think the guidelines are much more liberal in terms of selling to the private sector.
Yeah.
For National Zoo being an arm of the Smithsonian, part of the federal, bureaucracy, there was, just a lot more legwork that had to be done.
Yeah.
It is probably a part of that where, these animals, people may have had questions about it, but did they really know what was going on? That's probably also a part of it. They probably couldn't tell the difference between one animal to another.
Right.
Right.
So that's probably part of it. Also, go ahead, Keno.
No, you good. Go ahead. Finish up, Sean.
Also, probably one of the biggest parts of it is that with these new emergent species, like there's always something new to look out for at that point in time.
Yeah. So, Travis, Keno, do you guys happen to know to what degree, like the lineages and genealogies are still out there, and are people maintaining them?
Yeah, there's a lot of records that are maintained. There's a lot of people. True, I'll tell you this: a lot of people are selling snakes for big money off your name.
It's still happening. I've had a number of situations where people would call me up and say, "Well, is this a legitimate, animal that comes from you?" And if you have the data cards that I wrote on, then there's a chance that it's captive born. But so many people are just.
He said, "That's all I got."
And I had asked Trooper last night. We got into a pretty deep conversation revolving around snakes. What gave you the foresight to start the genealogies in the first place? And I don't remember what you told me because
I was going to ask.
It's very unique among any other. There's no other reptile lines out there that I'm aware of that has such a rich, history and being able to
chondros,
pedigrees and bloodlines.
Reptile wise, nah. I think the closest thing to chondros is like
was that
dogs.
Something you got from the
dogs
zoo,
and horses,
or just something in your own mind you felt?
No, that's something my father actually got me into writing stuff down, and ultimately my first paper in 1966.
I mean, I know like horses, dogs is very commonplace and probably was back then. But for reptiles, I mean,
even at the zoo. When I started there, all you would have on a cage back in the holding area is an accession number. No data, nothing. So I introduced it to the zoo, and sort of got popular from there.
I like how we call it the olden era. And also, shout out to Dads for making us do everything the right way.
Yeah. Hey, you see that? Tried and true.
Shout out to Dads.
Listen to y'all daddies out there.
Listen to your dad. But that's very interesting because at this point in time in reptiles, like there's some really long lineage charts, and I still see your name on a lot of that stuff, Trooper.
Yeah. I think in one or two cases we had probably close to 10 generations ultimately, from the time I started working with them, and then I didn't. So but it is interesting because, as Tim was saying, you don't see any other species where people are documenting with a pedigree, or in many cases even keeping any information on them. So, it's like with emerald tree balls. Why don't emerald people do that? There's no incentive, I guess. I don't know. Somebody has to say, hey, let's try this, see if it does any good,
It's probably because chondros, a lot of the chondros were bred for phenotype. And, if you started that, tradition of lineage charts, like it just probably carried on, and it made a lot of sense with chondros.
Yeah. It makes it more interesting, it makes you feel more a part of the whole community of people keeping whatever it is, in this case, chondros.
Yeah. Did it help you to remember, I'm sure it did, but I guess how much did it help you to remember, like if you wanted to do repeat parents or not, if something crazy came from this parent or whatnot?
What's your question again?
That certainly helped. Yeah, it helped you trace, characteristics of animals, and
Right, exactly.
you know, yeah, help with pairings and to that point, Trooper, what, you've always been a fan of the maroon browns over the yellows, even from way back when?
Well, my first few clutches were all just yellow, and I remember my first, well, I don't remember which animals it was, but I remember seeing my first red baby. It was just like, yeah, this is it.
But then you quickly caught on to the fact that they take longer to change over. They tend to have more dramatic color changes. The end result tends to be more, or at least the chance of getting more colorful individuals, patterns, etc., were much greater probability with the maroons.
Right.
We got somebody that doesn't wear a shirt ever. He wants to ask you a couple questions. He's the only person we're gonna allow to do this ever.
Okay. Hey. Nice.
I have a shirt. I went and put a shirt on just for this occasion, guys. So,
That's
Hey,
right.
he ain't lying, Trooper.
That's all right.
He's not lying. This is a Pat
Yeah,
we love to know.
I have to say I have a very, very selfish reason for wanting to pop on here right now. I just really wanted to see my face on the same screen as these two legendary gentlemen right here.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah,
the fuck out of here.
Pat,
yeah,
I'm
man.
glad
I
you were
look.
so happy
Hold up.
we wanted to be around me and Travis. Thank you.
I'm taking a screenshot right now to add to my Chondro archives. I'm gonna put this in the archives right next to in the Trooper Walsh folder that has all the lineage that I've got on this. Actually, keep it here at the shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad the bar room can pull them up though.
Yeah.
You should blow it up and put it on your wall since you don't have furniture in there anyway.
Yeah, I have a couch. I do have a couch.
But your
That you
island
don't
is
use.
like a focus cube box or something like an empty box.
You should put your Trooper Wall shrine next to your kettlebells, bro.
Yeah. I currently have empty chondro cages next to my kettlebells, so need to do something about that.
Condors you keeping?
What? Say that again?
How many condors are you keeping these days?
Don't make him answer that question.
Look, I'm gonna brag about something. I actually don't know how many. The last time I counted chondros over here, it was 133. But I've sold a few. It's definitely over 100 for sure. I'm also gonna here in a minute. I'm gonna show you guys something that everybody here will really appreciate because my quarantine space is here in the shop, and I've got some stuff here that you guys will like.
I definitely thought you would say you're gonna show your chest off for everybody.
No.
I will keep Superman chest, man.
It's a Christmas present for all the gigolo lovers.
I'm gonna keep my clothes on for this one. I do have to brag just a little bit too. There's there's this thing that I've heard so many times where supposedly, all this stuff is all legends now, but supposedly one time Trooper was doing a talk and he introduced himself. He said, "My name is Trooper Walsh and I've killed more chondros than any of you."
True. It's true.
And I would just like to say that I am reasonably certain that I have killed more chondros than you have, Trooper.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I
Did
just
you really come over here to brag, bro?
I came to brag a little bit about my
You didn't caught up
skills.
with Trooper.
Yeah.
He came up here to flex on Trooper Walsh. That is wild.
Yeah. My freezer collection is probably worth more than my fucking house. So
Take that.
I actually I've got a question that kind of plays in, which you guys may have already been headed this direction. So I apologize if I'm stealing somebody's question.
You're the only person that come here and do this.
we were talking about the yellows versus the reds. And before I ask this question, I have to mention one thing. A few years ago, I posted a picture of my Sauron female that she has since passed, but just this classic full blue stripe Sauron female. That's really the look that like got my attention with chondros in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And Trooper, you got on there and commented and said that she had the exact look that drew you to chondros in the first place too.
Yeah.
And so I always thought that was really awesome that you left that comment, because it to this day that still does it for me every time. Just a nice Sauron with a nice dorsal stripe is just an incredible animal.
Yeah, that's
so
my favorite too.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, at what point in time, when we all talk about Trooper Walsh lineage, the thing that always comes to mind for everybody now is blue animals, and we think of the TW blue line. And I want to know, at what point in time did that become a thing? Like when was the point where you're like, oh my gosh, we're producing blue animals, and you wanted to start trying to line breed for the blue animals?
Pat, you gonna come in?
Yeah.
You gonna take Trav's job to steal my questions?
Yeah. I just apologized in advance, and if I was stealing anybody's question, but
shit,
yeah.
I'm gonna have a drink for that one. Shout out to Pat. Oh, let me
So what are you asking?
Shout out to Pat.
I was thinking like, come on, dog. I was thinking like, I'm not halfway through. I'm like,
the blue potential was in
he
the lines that you were working with.
Well,
and that's a good question. So let me jump in here and add a little, another little preface to that, because that is a good question. Because that Mr. Blue was the first direct to blue morph.
Mm-hmm.
But before I bought those animals from you in '92, what did your intuition tell you was the potential for these lines? I remember you telling me, the maroon ones, the darker the better, the less markings the better. Those are the ones you preferentially kept back.
Right.
But I don't know that it was for the blue reason necessarily.
Well, I've probably seen blue wild caught ones, not many.
Thanks, Patrick.
I'm all sure, Tim.
Yeah, because preceding that, I know, was like the old Yeller stuff, which was the Biak infusion and the wild tricolors, calicos, etc. Because the calico came along before, the blue condors did.
Right.
Or the super blues, as they call them.
Basically, what I did, and I guess I'm do this with all my animals. If I have a clutch of 20 animals, I want to keep the ones that are most unique, and then one from that's like the rest of the clutch.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea what it was going to turn into. It's just I liked it. It's like I like red chondros. That's just some people like yellow. That's fine. I just like red ones. I think the first 2 or 3 clutches I had though were all yellow. It's got kind of boring, So
you had to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was about the third clutch. You say a third clutch. So that was your first clutch that you produced reds. That you think that was the one that kind of got the line going?
No, I'm not sure which clutch it was that I had my first red ones. I think they were at the zoo, but again, I just don't recall that stuff anymore.
Okay.
Too old.
Yeah, I actually wanted the fact that Tim was here too. I thought that was a great time to bring up that question because of his early involvement with that. And from my understanding, the thing that kind of solidified it, and my memory is not as good as it used to be, and I could pull all this stuff up over here on the laptop, but it seems like the thing that kind of solidified it was adding in the stuff from Al's blue line as well, like the combination of the blue stuff from Trooper and the blue stuff from Al is what really turned it into a consistently blue producing bloodline.
Yeah, I think the thing that
is that the AZP stuff you were talking about, Tim?
Well, yeah, I think the thing that was it the Larry Roush, wild blue.
Yep.
So there was one that came in blue that this guy Larry Roush owned. There was the Al Zulich sort of blue pairing, the 14-15 that shows up a lot.
Yep. Yep.
That I think was probably the beginning of the blue stuff, but that might have been,
Yeah.
you know, you were getting into that to infuse into the stuff that you had already established.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So there was some blue stuff, but I think predominantly most of those blues were, you know, females and ones that were, you know, developmentally blue.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, hormonals.
What up, Sal?
Yeah. Yeah, I realized that question probably came a little bit early, but I'm at work and I wanted to jump in before I had anybody come in here. So
Yeah, fine. That's a good question.
Yeah. You know, it's just amazing with the internet that, I mean, it's night and day difference, you know. I remember back when you wrote a letter with your hand, you know, and turnaround time was weeks. So
What is that?
there's just so many people. Him and I were
They used to
talking about
make us
this
do
last
that when
night.
I was in school and write letters to kids in China.
Yeah.
I remember. I don't know what type of school you was at, Travis.
Hey man, international pen pals. Listen, what was it? I think the only time I wrote letters in hand for the most part was when I was in the army.
Yeah. Well,
I felt like I was locked down.
So the point being that, you know, information back then traveled much slower, and as a result, I think progress was much slower. You know, now, you know, there's just, you know, instantaneous overload of just about anything you want to look up. And not that it gets you from point A to point B super fast, but certainly quicker, you know, because not only do you have the instantaneous communication, but you have the, you know, the web of communication where, you know, before you write a letter, it goes to one person.
Right.
And if they knew something somebody else knew, then there's another letter, you know, or maybe a phone call. But remember back in those days too, you know, long distance calls were, you know, were extra money. So, you know, a lot of people did just prefer to write or maybe just talk, you know, short bursts. So, I mean, just the spread of information and the networking, you know, the time it took just to network, you know, took quite a while.
Yeah, I racked up some serious phone bills back in the day talking about snakes. For sure.
Yeah.
Somebody's trying to beat your ass.
Patrick, how did you get into chondros?
Oh man. So I mean, I've been into snakes my whole life. My dad got me into snakes. He was also a lifetime keeper. Although the difference was that his mom was terrified of snakes and wouldn't let him keep them. So, but you know, I fortunately grew up in a reptile family, and I was always into arboreals because of pictures that I had in books. I had a book that had like a picture of a baby Amazon basin emerald in there, and that kind of got me going. And so I got my first Amazon tree boas from Crutchfield in '95. And once I had arboreals in my collection, it was over with from that point. And my first chondros I got in '98. A gentleman came into my pet shop, and he said that he had a pair of emerald tree boas that he wanted to sell. And he came in, and I was really excited because I actually liked the emeralds more than chondros back then. And he opened up this pillowcase, and two Aru Island chondros came flying out of the bag.
Wow.
And they were both classic Arus with blue blotching and white scales. And he sold me the pair of snakes for $150.
Wow.
Usually when people show up with pillowcases as surprises, you about to get into the cocaine game. That's usually how that
works. all that came later on. I was still just mostly into snakes at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, the I had them kind of off and on, but in 2006, I got a locally bred Sorong male, also for $150 actually, and also because he came into a pet store that I worked at. But I got to go to this house and see these four babies that he had, or four adults that he had raised from babies, and one of them was a solid hormonal blue female, and the two males both had really bold blue stripes. And around that time, I started seeing pictures on the Bushmaster website of all of their locality stuff. Right. and then I also saw Maxwell's book at a reptile show at NARBC, all in 2006. All those things happened the same year, and so I have had chondros nonstop since 2006.
That's cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm obsessed. Have been for a long time.
Yeah.
Here's a good question for you. We never even talked about this, but early on in your first few litters, you know, the whole, I mean, if you look at dialogue of new and intermediate keepers, first-time breeders, the number one topic I'd say that comes up is how the hell do you get these babies going? So back then, how did that evolve? Like, how did you figure out what to feed? I mean, were you guys trying to start things on pinkies back then? Was that
that was the goal? But that's when we started using like fluff from a chick, you know, baby chick, scent marking them, different things.
Now, I remember you telling me, and a couple of times I witnessed this. It never did work for me. You would take one of the live chicks at National and kill it, put the pinkies inside the carcass.
Right.
And you had good luck with that. I never could make that work, but
yeah, it depends on the clutch. I mean, some animals are more prone than others to accept different things.
But how did you so it's one aspect of this is the food.
Yeah.
You know, so early on you were starting to scent things. Did you try lizard scents back then?
Yeah. Chicks are they're available to me. So
well, they were, but I knew, like, I would imagine back then, however, you're thinking, you know, because a lot of this now is in hindsight. Yeah, chick feather down, all that. But back then, you're thinking, well, these things came from the rainforest. What are they eating there?
Right. What gave you the foresight to think even about the fluff?
To start with something along those lines first, no?
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. Did you start with like lizards or frogs scenting, lizard scenting before turning to chicks?
I probably started with the chicks.
Yeah.
And you know, lizards to a lesser degree, I guess. You know,
now, the whole chick thing. How did you come about that? I mean, were you guys using that with other types of species or whatnot?
Yeah, we got, you know, a couple dozen every week. So I just started off with that.
But then the second aspect is not just the food, but the technique
of presenting the food.
Yeah. And then, you know, we had several conversations. I remember during my first litter when I was calling you very frustrated, and you know, you told me on several occasions you just got to piss them off sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. You know, do whatever works.
Well, right, but that's advice from somebody who's honed that over years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was, you know, I guess you got to that point too, because there were some that didn't go for the chick down.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, between the type of presentation, you know, whether it's forceps tapping or whatever, again, it just depended on the individual baby. Some were just more prone to eat them or not. I was amazed. Who was the guy that did that study in I don't know if it was Australia or New Guinea? He had a film clip that I saw of a baby chondro grabbing a big cricket or something. I would never have thought that they'd eat something like that. Yeah. So, and I guess that's, you know, what they started off on. That's probably
insects.
Yeah, probably why. I'm pretty sure there's probably different scents in the wild that alert them that we just can't produce.
Yeah. Well, it's like people, you know, you might like, you know, tomatoes, and I don't, and you know, different individuals will go for other things.
Well, I remember I had a Pete Call had gotten briefly into breeding chondros, and he had a clutch, and he couldn't get it to feed, so he wound up giving it to me. But they were already 2 months old, and I remember bringing in I got him to order a shipment of high-lid tree frogs.
No, definitely a real people keep calling me, man.
Crutchfield. And I dumped them in, and they were all gone the next day. The problem was they were, you know, they don't have a lot of nutrition. You know, they're basically just skin and bones.
Mm-hmm.
And so they still didn't really thrive very well at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So getting to like before like you starting up, how did you go about noticing? How did you get good at noticing when the female went off food, her ovulation, getting the
Signs of
eggs?
gravity.
How did all that come about?
Developing the
Like, what gave you? How did you learn what the sign signals were that a female was, ovulating, becoming gravid?
yeah. Again, just having worked with other arboreal species and recognizing the similarities. It was just trial and error.
Oh, there. Now, you had mentioned to me one time that you have bred chondros in every month of the year.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And one
Did
year
you
I
ever get
double
any
clutched.
with the trial and error of the breeding? Did you ever get any surprise catches from females where you was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that?
Don't think so. Do you think of anything, Tim?
Now, he
No.
was about to say he double clutched a female one year. Didn't she
3
lose her teeth?
females. Yeah.
What?
One lost all of her teeth, and the other 2 ended up having a prolapse.
But you bred her twice in the year?
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to see if it could be done. You do it with colubers.
Just
But
a
I
mad
can tell you,
scientist.
it's a bad idea. One of those things, it literally had no teeth in its mouth, and it was a nasty snake. But it survived for years. It's just, you had to gently give it a mouse or a small rat or something, let it taste it.
So you did it for 3 females. How were the temperament of the other two females in recovery?
What was that?
What was that?
The other 2 females that you double clutched. How
Right.
was their recovery? How did they bounce
How was
back?
their recovery? No, they both prolapsed.
Yeah.
Did they then die from that?
Right. Yeah, they prolapsed probably within months of having laid the clutch.
And speaking
The
of
second
Did you
prolapse,
get?
you guys experienced
Did
a lot
you?
of prolapse issues back then?
Not a lot.
So not too many early on.
Right.
With the ones that double clutch, did you get fertile eggs and hatch any of them?
Yes.
Do you recall what the interval was, and was there there's different definitions of double clutching? Some colubrid guys only call it that without the reintroduction of a male. Did you reintroduce a male or to get them to go again? Okay,
Yeah.
and then I suspected as much. Do you remember what the interval was between clutches?
The interval between.
Oh gosh. Well, they were, when I would say within a year, 12-month period, 6 months apart, probably.
Yeah.
Is it's
that's wild.
You can feed up
6
the
months.
female and get them beefy.
Damn, Trooper, you was on a mission.
Yeah. Yeah, you can fatten them up quickly, but internally, I just takes it out of them. They just aren't
Calcium.
built to, have multiple clutches.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's like a serious impact on their reproductive organs and like them bouncing back that quick, or do you think it's just weight and size?
It's more weight and size, I'd say.
It's calcium too. They can.
Yep.
It's you can put fat back on very quickly. You can put muscle back on a little more slowly, but calcium stores take a long time to rebuild.
Right, and that's why that one snake lost all of its teeth.
Lost her teeth, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen females actually get mobility issues in their lower body where their vertebrae seem to do weird stuff. And not just chondros, other species where it just seemed like it zapped their calcium so bad to produce a big litter or a big clutch that it affected their bones in their lower body.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that it's essential to, give those females that just laid calcium supplements, or just wait till they, actually just eat normal meals for a while?
I think the best thing is just to let it go naturally. I mean, I don't know if anyone has done any research to determine if, supplementing really does anything. Probably can't hurt anything, but I wouldn't count on it in order to try to get them to double clutch. It's not good on a snake.
Well, just because it goes in doesn't mean it's absorbed. So that would be a good basis for a study to see.
Yes, sir.
So then, what you still recommend every other year?
Yeah. Again, there's some individuality differences, but I would say every other year is what I was comfortable with. And then when I had enough, females to do it, I give them more time.
Somebody had a question. He said, "You guys ever get a batch of frozen thawed mice that your snakes wouldn't eat?
No, they pretty much took everything I was breeding my own rodents then, so I could use fresh kill, but I some frozen.
That's an interesting point because I'm assuming that question is relating to if you get like a batch of discolored mice, discolored bellies, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering about. But I know in the wild, I'm sure that they're eating carrion and other things that are in some degree of decay.
We were talking last night about how did that go? Prolapsing. The only animals that I'm recalling that as adults that prolapse were those two females I told you about that I double clutch. I'm wondering with the babies if there's basically a pinky is just like a little ball of water, with a balloon wrapped around it. So there's not much nutrition in there. Whereas if they're feeding on small lizards or whatever, there'd be more calcium. And I wonder if that, in fact, might contribute to some of the problems we've had with, the babies prolapsing.
Yeah.
Because
basically, like when they're straining, they're having a bowel movement, straining, and basically pushing out nothing.
Yeah.
But also with spinal deformities, things of that nature, I don't hear about it much anymore. Maybe it's, something of the past, but there for a short period of time, we were having issues with the so-called cigar backing animals that would, basically fold back onto themselves, and later as they got older, that would manifest itself in, lumps on the spine where that was occurring, and that may have well have been a back to calcium deficiency, perhaps.
Yeah. There's just so many things that, great questions. Just talking like this, things come up and, get spurred on to try new and different things.
Yeah.
This is really this is the first podcast of any kind that I ever worked with. So
we appreciate that we're the first.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
You
This
got
is
it.
the first video one, yes.
Thank you, Trooper. You know what I'm saying? We was able to pop that cherry.
Yeah.
The Chondro cherry, sorry. The podcast
cherry. Hey, I got a question for you, Trooper. With all the babies that you've seen from cigar backing to prolapse in neos, what was the most common issue with neos back then before you honed in your version of sustained husbandry?
Probably getting the babies going. Once I figured out a few tricks, it was, I don't think I ever lost one for starving to death. I always hold back the best feeders, things like that, which would, show itself in the next 2 generations or something.
So that's one of the things that I've always wondered, because I know a lot of people say it's not true. Some people say it is true. You do firmly believe that those babies that eat better, like those genes are going to be around more generations to follow.
That's the hope. Yeah. And I think it's shown itself out, a number of different people had it happen. So, yeah.
Well, I know back in the 90s, the Barkers with children's pythons were systematically retaining the neos that were eating pinkies and then turning around and breeding them. And they were pretty convinced that those generations got easier and easier. Yeah.
I was just thinking, Rico's one that brought this to my attention that left it.
Something in Rico. Well, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So I got another question about neos in general. So you talked about neos consistently having this issue of feeding properly. As time went on, generation after generation, how did you choose which babies you were going to keep besides feeding response?
I would always hold back any unique animal of a clutch, and then also one that's, you know, like everyone else. It just their colors and patterns and stuff, which just interested me. It wasn't, you know, any scientific thing really. It's just personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because I think that, you know, everybody has a different standard of picking babies. One thing I wanted to talk to you about is calico.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Before you get into that, how did you distinguish
they just mess with my
unique?
questions. See, that's why I keep stealing your questions, man. That's why I steal your questions. You fuck up mine, I'm gonna keep stealing yours.
There you go.
So with the Reds, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's kind of easy. Like Pat get a crazy one. He had 13 Reds, and then it's that one you already know it. How did you distinguish that with the yellow holdbacks? You know, picking the most busy pattern yellows. How did you go about that with those?
Uh,
Or did you even hold back yellows or want to hold back yellows?
well, early on, yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about like when before you started doing the Reds. What were you
the
looking
Blaze
for in your
babies
yellows
did.
that you would want to keep?
Yeah.
Remember those? The ones that like
With the red stuff.
lightly brushed red down the back.
Yeah, that was first time I had that was with the old yeller when he had
Blaze babies.
it. Yeah.
Are people still getting those these days? The Blaze?
Yeah, I had a blaze baby this year.
Did you?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think my best looking animal probably over here was a Blaze Yellow Neo. She
There you
turned
go.
out like
That's
all
still
this
a
black
thing.
on her.
Well, that's awesome.
What are the colors and patterns that are real, you know, people are breeding for now besides blues?
It's still the same thing.
Yeah.
Blues, blacks, high yellow
Yeah.
animals,
Calicos.
calicos.
But I'll be honest with you, you don't have as many high yellow breeders.
Yeah.
People breeding for high yellows.
Yeah.
It's mostly blue, black, and like blue, black, and calico.
Yeah, I really like black ones, really dark ones. You know, where they have good contrast with a solid
Yeah.
green.
I knew it was a reason why I liked you, Trooper.
Yeah.
So I want to get to my calico question, Trooper. Let's talk about
right.
the
Go
calico.
ahead, do your thing,
When you first started, man, like with the calicos, like tell us about how that started.
Well, I had this again. It was an unusual baby. Raised it up, and I'm trying to think if I've gotten any from other people. Just not sure.
So that was the same. Well, the calico I'm thinking of was the
Computer
one I
Condor.
showed. You know, we looked at the
Condor,
pictures of it earlier that I took down in
Right.
Orlando.
Yeah.
And that was a sibling to the male that I used, the sire to Mr. Blue.
Right.
Yeah, the legend.
Definitely something to that litter, for sure.
Yeah.
But again, that calico look came about before the blue, you know, the solid blues.
Right.
And I haven't seen too many. I mean, is there somebody out there that has, you know, a simple blue animal? Because I see a lot of what I see these days is like blue with black and, you know, like a real pretty lime green. I mean, some awesome chondros, like tricolors, quadricolors, whatever you want to call it, but nothing like more along the lines of like a Mr. Blue or like a Frosty where it's predominantly blue with just some green. Typically that green is where the blue would be on a normal chondro. You know what I mean?
I probably say John Irby,
Dave and John Irby.
Yeah, Johnny's got some. Yeah.
Yeah, John and Dave
he's got some
are
nicer ones.
about to say Dave
does.
too.
Well, no,
yeah, Dave and they both have a lot of crazy stuff, but they're actually both trying to kind of breed that breed for that more classic solid blue look. Like they'll get these animals that get a bunch of black on them and they get mad about it, even though everybody loves that stuff because both of those guys are still trying to get some nice classic solid blue animals.
Yeah.
And still using all that
calico look, right?
yeah. Well, you know, Dave has some amazing calico stuff too, and there's a few guys. TSK. What's that?
Tommy Budway has some nice blue ones.
Yeah, Tommy
There,
Budway.
he's got
Nice
some really
blue
nice
ones.
blue
Yeah, I would forget
animals.
about
Yeah.
Tommy Boy.
I was just talking to
Yep.
Tommy Budway.
I mean, for a clown, he
Yep.
does pretty well.
Hey, he's a nice guy though. You don't say that about Tommy Budway.
Yes.
It's some nice blue snakes that you'll see out there. I just think it's just scattered.
Yes.
But I think that the biggest concentration of it you'll see with Dave D, John Irby, and probably Christian Stewart.
Yeah.
I am because I have somebody that's supposed to be showing up here to hook up a phone line for me. I'm going to show you guys a couple of things in case this guy walks in. So
We like
this
that.
animal, I suspect this girl will turn blue when she gets older. She has I can't remember her whole pedigree off the top of my head, but she has the Pygar Joan Collins pairing in her pedigree, and it's hard to see in here, but she's got that nice blue undertone that a lot of these animals get, and sometimes that'll translate into adulthood into a nice blue. So I figured I'd pull her out because she's got some Walsh blue lineage. And
So you're
then
just over here calling it in the air like Babe Ruth, huh?
let's see. This is not a Sauron, but it'll still work with what we were talking about earlier for a nice blue stripe.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's my favorite of all the locality animals.
Mine
That's
too.
nice electric blue without a flash. You know, a lot of times
Yeah.
people would use a flash to pull out those blues. You know,
Yeah, or shade shots.
that
But
pops.
sound, yeah, I'm about to
You
say,
cut it out.
that one.
You stop it. You stop it.
This is
Patrick.
just a nice wild caught Jayapura female that Chuck sent over. Actually, she's really nice.
Shout
But
out to Chuck.
those are not the animals that I wanted to show you guys. These are what I wanted to show you guys.
Shirt's coming off.
Shirts are not coming off. Hold up.
Oh, come on.
Well, one at a
Oh,
time.
really?
Oh, the nice Marukas.
Oh.
You got a pair of Miroke. Okay.
There we go.
Hey.
I
Okay.
actually have two pairs back here in quarantine. This is the nicer of the two pairs.
Just get those because I know a few
Yeah.
came in August.
Yep.
Just
Yeah, these are pretty recent imports, and I haven't seen the numbers.
That Alexis knew.
I'm not sure, honestly. Ryan Gradney brought these in.
Okay.
He got them from Danny Gundelin.
Hey, Pat, I'm gonna tell you right now, Pat. I want one, but I want one with.
So Patrick, do you know the big sort of the sour spot with these Marukis is?
What's that?
Well, you know, back in the day, in fact, I showed Trooper an almost equally nice pair that Paul August and I bred back in 2009.
Hey, Chris,
and
you see,
Trooper and I
we dropping off Christmas gifts. That's all.
For some reason, the offspring don't seem to develop the white that those
Don't have the white stripes. Yeah, absolutely, and that seems to be the case across the board. You know, Maroke and
why that is. You know, it's I don't.
But wait, hold on. Paul Bodnar, he posted. I think he got like 3 offspring that had. They were Maroke and they had like red stripes down the back, and
so
they developed that stripe, that yellow.
First of all, those animals. I'll clear up a couple things about that. First of all, there's no chondros in Maroke. The closest habitat to the city of Maroke where there's any chondros is like 80 miles from that city. That's just the port that they come out of. And so the animals with that label could be Tanamara animals. Here's the thing about what Paul is posting. Paul's animals are not Maroke either. Those ones that he had, you know, it's acceptable to call Tanamara animals Maroke because that's where they come out of. But the other thing is that there were some animals that came in that sometimes they get the label of Oxabil, but sometimes stuff with that label gets that label because that's the closest city on the right side of the border, but they're actually coming from somewhere else, and people are not wanting to put the Lake Katubu or whatever label on them. And so those are southern southern highland animals from further west or from further east of
Yeah,
Morocco that Paul has.
Copenhagen is where Carl Swiatek got a bunch.
Yeah, and so, but the thing is that that white striping, that white vertebral stripe, seems to be consistent across the entire southern mainland range, and all chondros, every single chondro locality has white scales to some degree or another in the wild, but for some reason it doesn't translate into captivity really well. So there's a few different theories about that, and some guys believe you can just get it done with selective breeding, and I would love for that to be the case. So and it's the same thing with all these. We have the same problem with anything related to chondros. The problem is sample size. We need multiple guys working on multiple generation breedings that started with nice white animals and see if we can bring it back around.
But you need more scientists
Because
in the game. That's what you're saying.
yeah, no, we don't need any more scientists in the game.
Listen,
And
we all about to finish this year on a good note. Cut it out.
yeah, yeah. But there's guys in Australia that are producing full striped Aussie stuff. So it's possible, but you're absolutely right. The white in all localities, first generation captive bred, the white does not translate the way that we want it to.
Man, I can't wait till
Shout out
Pat
to the
goes
white.
get himself a khaki short outfit and just goes to live in the jungle and just catches chondros for us to study. Listen, that's what we need to do. We need to get a joint fund together to get Pat a
Yeah,
khaki
get a
outfit.
GoFundMe going.
Yeah, there you
To
go.
live in the jungle
I
and catch
I
chondros.
already I already have like probably 8 pairs of khaki shorts. So we're halfway, and I don't wear shirts, so we're in there, bro.
There you
I
go.
don't know. I don't know what that means. Do you mean? I'm not even gonna ask a question about why you got so many khaki shorts. But
I'm gonna leave that between y'all
I,
two.
yeah, I don't really want to know. I don't know what you're doing.
I like khaki shorts. Is that
Yeah.
not a good enough answer?
I don't know, man. That might be part of your little Craigslist male stripper game. You might just show up, Steve Irwin, Pat Irwin pop up on you, gonna make you wrestle this python at the
First of
bachelorette
all,
party.
if I was doing that, I'd be a little bit more high end than Craigslist. I'm just gonna throw that out there. So.
Okay, we gonna bring back Backpage for you.
God damn.
Man, listen, I always appreciate people knowing this stuff because sometimes I don't know this stuff, but I will say that with the Marocays, what I do know is the Marocays I've seen that have been reproduced in America, they don't look like that.
Yeah, that's true. Hey guys, the person that I said I was waiting on actually just showed up, and so I'm gonna stop hijacking this podcast. And thank you so much for having me on, Trooper. Nice to kind of meet you, sorta.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, Patrick.
hopefully we can get you guys back on and do this again sometime. But I'm gonna get back to work because I'm actually getting paid right now. So see you guys later. Love you guys. Y'all have Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Hey, Merry Christmas,
Pat,
bro.
Merry
We promise
Christmas.
we won't tell HR on you, bro.
I mean, it's on the internet now, so I'm kind of fucked either way.
Patrick who?
Patrick who?
We ain't
Mike
telling.
Jones who?
That's right. Y'all keep that energy when the feds show up.
Yeah,
I
just be
definitely
fresh as
got your
hell.
back against the feds. It's
Yeah.
you against the feds, man.
Yeah, I got you, Pat. I'll lie for you.
Later, guys.
Peace,
Later.
bro.
All right, Pat,
Take it easy,
take
buddy.
it easy.
All right. Shout out to Pat. Pat is the only person that gets to come over and just do this on the show. It's an honor to always have him come and drop off some knowledge that me and Keno don't have and ask questions that we don't think about. So we love you, Pat,
For sure.
and always feel welcome to come through. But I do got a question for you, Trooper. I want to transition this into the Trooper Walsh that we mostly know is a lot of your snakes. They ended up in good hands. So tell us about the snakes that you put out there that went on to do, wonderful things with other breeders, because we still see your name on a lot of lineage charts. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah. That's kind of hard to answer.
So I want to talk to you. So I know that we've had other people mention you. I know Chuck Vogel has mentioned you. Can we talk about the things that you've done with Chuck Vogel? And before Chuck Vogel, let's talk to you about the things that you did with Tim.
Tim, what were we saying? You got your first chondros for me in '92, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
you
through the Ross and Marzak reproductive husbandry book, I figured out that this guy Trooper was working with green trees, and he was right down at the National Zoo, and I started volunteering at the zoo to try to make some inroads. And that summer in August was when they had the Breeders' Expo, and Trooper was down there with Gene and selling the wares, and that's when I bought one, and then he gifted me one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mr. Blue came out of all that.
Yep. Yeah, he's
Mr.
probably
Blue.
bred more females than any other chondro that I know of.
Yeah,
a lot of him around.
Mm-hmm.
So did you know? So you said you was gonna keep the unique reds.
Mm-hmm.
Was Mr. Blue? Was he not unique as a red baby?
He was.
He was. Yeah.
So what did Tim do? How did Tim wrestle that out your hand?
Much in the way of marking.
Could you say that again, Tim?
He was very dark. He was a little darker than most of them because they were all maroons, and he had a very reduced patterning, like hardly any pattern at all, other than a black stripe down the back and a couple little offshoots here and there.
I would put a black stripe down their back too. Keep going, Tim.
No, that was it. It was just very distinctive.
So with that snake,
Trooper, hold on. Let me ask him with Trooper. Why did you sell that, Trooper? Like, what made you sell that? Did you take that
Why you
chance?
like
He gave it to me.
Why you like Tim so much, Trooper?
Mr. Blue.
Right.
And he told me it wasn't going to count anything.
Oh well.
So hold on, Trooper. Now I'm questioning your. He
knew he was just setting me up for success long term.
Shout out to mentors.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Trooper.
But no, Trooper, I'm trying to question how you keep your holdbacks now. You said that wasn't going to turn out to be a nice one.
Oh well. Whenever I told someone it was an animal was a holdback, all of a sudden that's the animal they want.
Okay.
I get offered so much more than for other babies, and it just sort of this was just a natural progression.
Okay, so that snake that you sold, Tim, it turned out to do wonderful things.
Mm-hmm. There's a little more to that story. So
tell us.
And I've shared this with you guys before, but I came home with, the two animals from that 92 Breeders' Expo, and they were litter mates. And so I had raised them up over a year, and I got to a point where I didn't want to breed litter mates. And I figured, Trooper didn't want the male back, the one that he gifted me. So I tried to get him to trade me a female that was not closely related. And it took a little effort to work him off of something. You originally were sort of apprehensive about it, in part because I know you were very, very cautious about taking anything into your collection, back then.
What do you mean?
From an outside source.
Yeah.
And that was part of it, I think. You didn't know me that well. And so maybe there was some apprehension there. But anyways, he had wound up agreeing to do a swap with a litter mate to Joan Collins and Powder, which wound up becoming the so-called Tim Morris Blue female. And I think you knew there was something special with that litter going on because you had several from that clutch, and they were, by that point, a couple of years old.
Yeah.
They were fast growing litter. But that's interesting. So with that little runt male that you did give me, I mean, he wasn't, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, he wasn't like a maroon standout per se.
Right.
Like in terms of markings, he was typical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was nice, but he was typical. But I guess you wouldn't have, had you held on to him, you probably, I mean, I guess maybe you might have done something with him down the line. It sounded like you just had some concerns because of the slowness with which he grew. I guess he was a little bit tough to get started.
Yeah, it was a 3-gram snake.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It was tiny.
One of the twins.
That was 3 gram back then.
Prior to Mr. Blue was part of a twin, egg situation, and the egg mate died, I guess.
What do you guys use for incubators these days?
I let Keno go. Also, man, shout out to your favorite cheerleaders here, bro.
Your sales tactic. Yeah.
Your favorite cheerleaders here too.
He definitely is team Tim.
Yeah.
But no, I use a
You should just put on
Trooper. It's made by this dude named Chris in Florida. Sea Serpents. It's a hot box.
Sea Serpents.
24. Yeah. Well, that's what I use. But all my clutches have been there so far.
I have 2 incubators. I have a Sea Serpents one that I've used for 2 successful clutches. And I have one that I built. Shout out to Randy P and Tuck from Purple Rain. They helped me build my big one out of a drink cooler, like the ones that you see at like the gas stations, like the glass ones. They helped me build one of those, and I've used that for 2 clutches. So, 3 clutches technically, because 1 clutch just went terribly wrong. Hey, I gotta ask you that, Trooper. Did you ever lose an entire clutch?
You mean once they've hatched?
Like before they hatched, like just an entire clutch of eggs.
Yeah. I can't recall why. I don't know if it was the male or what was going on, but usually it was common to get a couple of eggs in any given clutch, but yeah.
Trooper, what was your rule on breeding clutch mates? I know Tim said that he didn't want to breed the clutch mates from you. That's why he tried to do the trade. What was your rule on that? Did you like to breed clutch mates? Did you prefer the inbreeding? What was your thoughts on that?
Well, I try to breed animals as much unrelated as possible. I don't know if I've ever done a brother sister, although quite frankly, I don't think it would be a problem. Yeah.
I mean, I think that like there's probably a limit to like how often you can breed clutch mates together. Maybe one time is fine, maybe 2 times, but I don't know if you can do it over and over again.
Yeah,
over and over again.
You'd probably have problems down the line. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's turn it towards maternal incubation.
Yeah. So,
guys, if you remember, just some broad strokes of what you learned, because you published a paper, research monitoring temperatures of maternally incubating females.
I did.
You did.
Okay.
You did.
I'll take your word on it. Remember.
You had the thermistor probes inside, and you were monitoring the female basically incubating the eggs. And if I remember correctly, that became sort of one of the artificial protocols you use with cool the first 2 weeks, ramp it up in the middle, 6, and then cool it back down.
Yeah.
Was sort of following what you measured in that paper you presented to the IHS, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, that was the further notes
Yeah.
one. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So with the maternal incubating, I know, Tim, that you worked with a few people, helped them how to do maternal incubation. Your first time doing maternal incubation, was Trooper there to help you through it?
Yeah, he was pretty instrumental in that because there was a lot to sort out at that point because, you know, there were several key things that he shared with me about the setup that, you know, especially in that first litter that were priceless, really. You know, one of which was, you know, no direct heat over the eggs. Another was maintaining a dry substrate where the eggs were inside the egg box, but also at the same time maintaining ambient humidity.
Yeah.
Another big learning point was, you know, not running the enclosure at the same temperature as you would normally with, you know, just an inhabitant. So in other words, you're running lower temperatures, letting the female do the work, and also sharing the fact that, you know, keeping in mind as the clutch progresses and the babies were going to start generating their own heat, it was very critical to monitor, you know, the clutch temperatures and also the ambient temperatures so that, you know, the eggs didn't overheat. So there was a lot of things that I hadn't even thought of and wouldn't have thought of. I mean, I'm sure by trial and error at some point, but, you know, my communication with him was pretty much, you know, critical in my success, you know, that first time. I mean, it would probably have taken me, you know, several clutches to sort of work it out on my own, I'm sure. You know, that was 20 years of, at that point, 20 years of his knowledge, you know, sort of wrapped all up into, you know, several key points.
Okay. So Trooper, with you doing both maternal and conventional incubation, could you tell us necessarily the biggest differences that you saw once the babies actually did hatch? Like, can you tell us if some babies were more robust, some babies they ate quicker? Could you tell us about the differences in results?
To a degree, it was there are some things in different clutches there, that vary more than others. With the females, we found that they go through, you don't have night and day, but they have activity patterns and then, docile, just holding eggs together basically. And the way I came up with the temperatures I used, I sort of averaging, at the beginning, the females producing more, just twitching a lot, producing more heat, and the further along they get, they twitch less, and it gets a little bit cooler. Cooler and drier at the end is a really good thing to do. And I do that with a lot of animals. I was that way with the Komodo dragons, which we studied those eggs really intensely.
Tim, what did you notice in using both?
In terms of?
Conventional and maternal incubation.
You mean in terms of the kind of babies that were produced? Or?
Yeah.
I don't know that I noticed any differences, honestly. I don't know. And of course, I really couldn't make any direct comparisons because it wasn't like I took one pair, did maternal, and then took that same pair and did artificial. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been an apples thing. There was always a different male, a different female involved. Like for example, my female, Trooper and I were talking about this last night. Now I brought this up in the podcast before, but I bred my female that I, traded, and got in return from Trooper at 2.5 years old. She had her first litter, at 2.5, or she was bred at 2.5, first litter around 3 years old.
Right.
And that was a maternally incubated clutch. I turned around and did maternal the following year, back-to-back years.
With the same animals?
With a different male.
Okay.
And then I gave her a year off, and then I did back-to-back years in 99 and 2000 with Mr. Blue.
For the 99 and 2000s with Mr. Blue.
Yeah, those were artificial incubated though, and then in 2002, 2003, or 2003, 2004, Buddy Getzker and I did back-to-back years with his Daddy Pants male, which was an offspring from Old Yeller.
Okay.
And that fifth litter she had produced the biggest one that she ever had. It was something like 36 or 38 eggs.
Yeah, I was.
Whoa!
And I think 27 hatched. So they all look good going in. Buddy had the nice Forma Scientific incubator, which Trooper also had later. When did you get your first Forma, Trooper? When did you? Do you remember?
Probably early 90s, and I got it through Gene.
Through
Gene
Gene.
Bissett.
So only has 27.
Well, I had a 36, and they all look good though. And yeah, that was probably one of my most. I mean, obviously the Mr. Blue litter, being my first, will always be the top.
Part of the most prolific.
But that litter created some really wild offspring. So.
Trooper, do you know which female gave you a largest litter? Do you know what that count was? I mean, clutch. Do you know what that count was?
Remember sort of what your larger litters were?
Probably around 30 has been the max. 20 is about an average, I guess. Tim, was that big clutch of yours? Were the eggs smaller than normal?
Yeah, so you and I actually had that conversation several times.
Yeah, let's have that conversation.
The percentage of the mass to the female itself,
and
that you either ended up with bigger eggs but smaller litters, or smaller eggs and bigger litters. But I think we worked out some numbers at one point. Worked out that the relative clutch masses were fairly consistent.
Yes, sir.
And you guys know what the relative clutch masses?
No, please explain that to us, because you guys are real scientists.
Are you saying that tongue in cheek, or are you serious?
I mean, that's okay. My lawyer gave me back my money.
No, I don't know. No, for real, I don't know what the.
No, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't want to
No. Just
something that the majority of people already know. I don't. So relative clutch mass is just it's a reproductive measurement where you're basically measuring the female and the eggs, compared to the female less the eggs, right? And so you get the relative clutch mass, meaning what percentage of the total body mass of the female was the clutch as a percentage. And what we were saying was, whether you got a large litter of, say, 30, they were always smaller eggs, whereas like with some of the other litters, you'd end up with 12 to 16, but they'd be bigger.
Go play
but compared to the mass of the female, the relative mass of that clutch would always be within a similar percent. I don't know, 30%. I can't remember the numbers that we had. So.
Well, we appreciate you for explaining that to our audience. They're mostly public school children, so that's probably very helpful.
Yeah, what are you trying to say, man? I teach public school.
We know it's just a joke. Listen, we got another person.
Public school kids, you know what I'm saying? You was a private kid. You was a private school kid.
What are you talking about? You know I went to public school. How I turned out. Listen, we got another question from another guy that we rock with, Chris Rice. he got a question. He says, I read on an old paper he wrote, this is referring to you, Trooper, describing some of his early breedings of chondros. And in that paper, he mentioned that females seem to have a clear preference for an elevated nest box. And then it goes on, rather than on the floor. Did he still feel that way after
Trooper.
more experience breeding them, or was that just an early observation? Chris Rice is firing off a bunch of questions, just so you know.
Yeah, because many of your nest boxes were sort of elevated in the enclosures that I saw anyway.
Right. Yeah.
He also wrote that he believed that when a female drops eggs off of the perch or scatters them, that this is an unnatural behavior caused by the female not having an adequate nest spot. Again, is that still his opinion or just an early observation? Any insight would be appreciated.
It's just an observation of that, those few animals.
Now, that famous picture that was in the Ross and Marzak reproductive husbandry book that was credited to Trooper.
Stop.
We had talked about it last week. We mentioned some of those eggs actually survived.
Yeah.
So some eggs dropped from the perch. Those eggs actually, some of them survived.
Yes.
Hey, you know what, Trooper? Like the survivability of those eggs, like it's still like a thing, and that's still a question. It's just like whether to give them different type of egg boxes. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I tried to take a snake and a female that was laying and put her in a rack system until she laid. That didn't end well, but I think it's still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my boxes were always on the floor of the cage.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Merry Christmas, Chuck, to you and the family.
Some of mine were too.
Yeah.
Ones I had at home.
Shout out, Chuck.
Be interesting to see where females go in the wild. I don't have any observations of that.
Okay.
Whether or not they find a hole in a tree or or get down on the ground in a fern or something.
That's something a few people have experimented with. Mike, what's his name? Mike Majoros and Chuck. Chuck's actually just came in. We got another question.
Yeah, because some people believe that she scattered them out like that because she thinks they may not be viable.
I'm trying to read this here.
It asks if you kept adults over water.
We got you, Trooper. We got you. We
read it. Did Trooper keep adults over water? And if so, how did he deal with gravid females in that scenario?
Well, I use these large white industrial.
We'll talk about it later, Salad.
Tubs. What was the question there?
Hold on, I'll pull it back up. So he said, did Trooper keep
them over water?
Yeah. When they get to the pre-lay shed, I just put newspaper on the bottom, got rid of the water. Just put a nest back on the ground. At the zoo, we have a fairly large enclosure, which allowed me to set up the eggs in a higher spot. It's just natural to them.
Okay. Do you think that maintaining high humidity when they're about to lay important? Because some people say it's not, but I do think it's important. And also, do you think it's a good idea to have supplemental heat on the floor? Because that's what Pat taught me, and I'm gonna say that I think that is very useful. Supplemental heat on the floor of the enclosure.
Yeah, when I was doing them in those tubs with the heat tape under the back, I just turn the heat tape off. And I'd use more of a radiant heat from light bulbs above.
We got another. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
No, go ahead. Tell me what you're gonna say.
Did you ever have a female that after she laid eggs, take an unusual amount of time to shed again after that?
No, it's usually a pretty, like within a couple of weeks. Within that week, 2 weeks, maybe.
So what would you think if you had a female that maybe say she took like 5 or 6 months to shed after laying?
She was mosaic.
Let's say she never had a pre-lay shed. She
Yeah.
lays a clutch of eggs, and then the next time she sheds is probably about, I say, maybe a couple months after they hatch.
Mm-hmm.
What would you think was going on with this female?
What was that about
What do you
females?
think what's going on with the female?
I think there's just a lot of variability with it. Depends not only on the animal, but on the setup. And
I had a couple girls that didn't have a pre-lay.
yeah, I
had two.
Yeah.
I had one that just did that to me.
Yeah. And I had a couple neonates that took forever to have their first shed.
Yeah.
Over a month.
I had one of them last year. Yep, and then
Yeah.
it was like he shed like 3 sheds.
And I guess it just depends on their overall behavior and their vitality. I mean, if they're acting otherwise normal, I wouldn't be concerned about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, this is really funny. My best artificial litter ever. There was this big thing about, having to cool down the males. And that was vital. I literally pulled the so-called legend male, Mr. Blue's sire, off the heat tape. He was in a tub with bottom heat tape. Literally pulled him off the floor, off the heat tape. He was warm. Threw him in with the female. They bred, had the best hatch rate artificially they ever had.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying that it makes sense. I mean, there is definitely a thing with temperature and, sperm viability, but I'm not so sure that it was that critical. I don't know.
Hey, I got another question from Joppy, my Eritrean cousin. If I don't ask this question, he gonna put a
Shout out to Eritrea.
He said, "Did Trooper ever deal with females that have retained eggs, and what would you do to get them out?"
I don't know that I ever had an entire clutch. I might have had. No, I did. I remember one female at NZP where it was that way.
Like a full retention of the eggs or a partial?
Yeah, partial.
Yeah.
In terms of.
Did you deal with it or turn it over to veterinary services?
I deal with it. Like if you had 1 or 2 eggs that were left, just slowly palpate them out.
And foo-foo.
Some people stick a blunt needle in there to perforate the eggs, but I just worked them out. I've done that with a number of species, no problems.
Yeah. And the females roll on.
Shout out to foo-foo and goulash.
Yeah. Yep.
So I got to ask you this question: what are some of the issues that you have dealt with females that were laying over the years that may have, resulted in the death of a female?
Oh gosh. You mean while on eggs?
Yeah. Or laying eggs, or just in the process of giving,
So what major reproductive issues have you encountered that you can recall? Any that you come to mind?
Not specifically.
Yeah.
No.
We got another question. Somebody wants to know, have you ever had any parthogenesis clutches? Parthogenic.
Not with those. I had it with corn snakes once.
Okay.
That's wild.
Okay.
And were you part of some of the study that, the guy who co-wrote or wrote the Komodo book on the Komodo parthenogenesis, right?
The book?
Well, the guy, who was the guy who did the great book on Komodos that you had many copies of. You knew the guy. He did a lot of genetics work.
I'm not recalling it.
I can't remember his name. All right.
Okay. When it comes to most of your clutches, would you say that you had a favorable outcome, with most of them?
I'd say so, yeah. Yeah. I got lucky the first time, and it took a few more clutches to work out the the things that are really important for the specific age. Yeah.
So, I'm go ahead, Tim.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there anything that you can recall that you learned from Gene as far as dealing with chondros? Because you guys talked a lot.
With Bissett?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Anything that he encountered that was like, oh, wow.
I can't think of anything.
Yeah. Now, when he started getting into chondros, did he pretty much know what was going on with them as well? Or did you sort of flow your experience to him?
Yeah, I passed on all the
So
information.
he was, because he was into berms and all that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that brings me to another question. I know that Tim is
I'm gonna
very
say, Tim,
knowledgeable.
Tim, you sound clear as hell, by the way, man.
He is very clear. He's got good sound. So I know that you like really knowledgeable about some of the papers and publications that Trooper has done. Trooper, I gotta ask you about this. Like, how many people would you say that you did over the years that you've given, besides Tim, because we see it in Tim, that you've given a lot of hands-on instruction to in terms of keeping and breeding chondros?
Yeah, that to me is a big issue, and it's with all the species I work with. I view knowledge as something that should be given away. Now, I was working in an institution where that didn't matter so much, but yeah.
I know you help Greg a lot.
Right.
What about like Tom Robertson? Because I never met him.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't admit a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe 100. I really don't know. Quite a few.
Well, I think it's easy to say that you are the father of the chondro hobby. And I just want to know from Tim, what are some of the things that Trooper has taught you over the years?
Well, I mentioned several things in with regard to the maternal incubation, the feeding, watching the animals, I knew either consciously or subconsciously, I did take his intuition with animals that he would hold back and sort of do the same thing. Although, funny story, I showed him this morning, I think it was, we were going through, I brought my laptop down, which has a lot of older pictures on it, some of which he had never seen. And to that end, one of my craziest maroon babies I ever produced turned out to be completely plain green.
Variability.
Yeah.
Listen, if you guys want pictures to display, send them over. We can put them up.
Yeah, I wish we just didn't have the preparation time.
It's fine. It's good.
I'll see what I can drum up here a couple minutes while you guys are the next thing. Hey, why don't you guys take a few minutes? I think we'd be remiss if we didn't take this opportunity. And I know it's sort of off topic a little bit, but as you know, Trooper is equally as well known, if not more well known, honestly, worldwide, with his work with the Komodo dragons.
Yeah, let's talk about Komodo.
I was actually about to get into that.
Yeah, the National Zoo in Washington was the first zoo outside of Indonesia, to captively hatch these monitors. And in large part, Trooper was the one who worked out the parameters for, how to house the adults, how to, through other researchers, how to incubate the eggs. And I mean, that's a quite remarkable story as well, and in addition to the outrageous demands that placed on, I guess, you as an individual and as well as the zoo, because you guys were one of the first zoos to get these things, and they were a very high profile animal. And I know we talked at one point a couple years ago about, Dale Marcellini, who was the curator at the time, they were going over to Indonesia to get these animals. and Dale wanted these big animals, right, because they were more impressive. And
No, they wanted to give us the big animals. Dale's the one that asked for smaller ones.
small ones, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was your push to ask for small ones, but I guess that was Dale.
Yeah, well, he'd seen with other species how valuable it is to raise them up from youngsters. So
Right.
Well,
But zoo management wanted the instant sort of gratification of having these monster monitors on display, I guess. And
Well, let's start from the beginning, Trooper. Let's talk about when it was first, an idea on the horizon that you guys might get Komodo dragons, and tell us about that.
Well, that's kind of funny. We didn't ask for them. It was a state gift from President Suharto to President Reagan. It's like with pandas; they're given out only as a state.
Shout out to Republican backdoor deals, man.
Yeah. What was I saying?
So you got
the origin of how they came to Nashville.
Yeah, the Reagan.
So they basically just got these dragons and said, "Here, Trooper, do fix this."
My boss, he wasn't into. He was a real scientist. He wasn't into the big flashy stuff. He he worked with geckos and
he was a real
scientist.
lizards.
Okay.
Shout out to real scientists.
Tim, where was I going with that?
So you guys were first offered these. But you were offered the larger ones. So, but tell me about the process before you guys actually got them in and like how that deal worked.
Well, Dale went over there to pick them out, and he came back with them. Actually, I remember it was a separate trip from the one I took with him there. Something I was wanting to say, but I can't remember.
How was it transporting those things? Because that would be the first time.
Yeah, they're just in 6 foot long rectangular boxes. Nothing fancy at all, and that worked really well. When we got them, I've always been the snake guy. We have a guy who is the lizard guy, but Dale apparently had more confidence in my ability to work with these things. He literally pulled me aside when we got him and said, "Look, these things are going to be high profile with the press for a while. Within a year, when all things die down, I don't care if they die. They just weren't anything to him. But when I take on a project, I'm going to do what I do best, and that's what I did with the Komodos. Is everything I could. I used blackmail on the director in order to get him to get
Yo, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Our original building, the adults were put in. There were gaps like 3 inches wide up, in the corners. It was just poorly made, and I'd always wondered if they'd been laid in the exhibit, and if they'd hatched, they'd be in Rock Creek Park by now.
So we got a picture of you, Trooper, with a Komodo, man.
Yeah, that's cracking. That's my number one baby.
That's
wow,
crazy.
wow! Look at you with your stunning black hair, man.
Yeah,
I'm about to say, man. Hey, look,
you was a man at the bar.
You had the soul glow working. Boy,
yeah, that's a pretty boy.
It had some shine to it.
You never paid for drinks at the bar, did you?
Yeah, no.
I bet you probably got babies from here to Indonesia, Trooper.
Yeah. When we got the dragons, they were the only ones in the Western Hemisphere that had been for many years. and now I don't know how many zoos have them. I'm guessing maybe 40 or 50 zoos just in the U.S. probably have dragons now. And to me, I like to actually I'm following the instructions of God in the first book of Genesis, where He puts man in charge of naming animals and breeding them. So that's my mantra. I just want to have more animals out than when I've got finished working with them than in the beginning. So, and I like challenges, things that hadn't been done before.
Shout out to the Bible, man.
Yeah. Shout out to God for giving man dominion over the earth.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you two get together? Because you're not in the same state, are you?
No, I'm in
No,
Texas and he's in Chicago.
Okay.
Keno
Yeah.
can tell the story better.
that's my brother from another mother. It was like it was actually he posted he was looking for a female chondro in the groups, and they just they just started just killing him. They was like, oh, get in line. This how long the line is. It was like memes of people around the corner and shit.
Yes,
And
sir.
they was basically killing him. I'm like, bro, I'm like, hey man, look, here goes some people, bro. You tap into these people, bro. There's some good dudes to buy from, Ryan Burke. And honestly, man, it just went from there. True, we just kind of grew and got closer. Just developed this brotherly bond. But
So
we
you
get back
just
each
meet
other's
over the
families.
internet, or did you meet in person?
No, we met over the internet. We met
Okay.
over the internet. But we met in person too. He's been in my house. I ain't been to his house yet, but I've met his family. He's met mine. He's met my lady. I met his. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my brother.
This is my guy, man. My mom has even talked to him. He don't.
Yeah, I done
My mom
talked to his mom and everything.
Who
he
said
does.
internet dating doesn't work?
Yeah, I guess you would call it that. I guess me and Keno got a real strong connection. My daughter was asking me something because I was talking to him on the phone while I was with my daughter. She was like, "Who is that?" I was like, "It's Uncle Keno." She was like, "Uncle Keno." But yeah, she's my kids. They talk to him in the background. Like I know his kids. Yeah, my own mother's talked to Keno. Keno doesn't believe what my mother has to say, but my
Well,
mother has
let's
talked to
clear it up,
Keno.
Mr. Irvin. I'm not calling you a liar. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like
Were you
you
guys
gave me the half
independently into
truth.
chondros before you met, or did one steer the other
Yeah,
direction?
Keno had a bunch of chondros, and when I first was looking for a female chondro, Keno like looked out for me, and Keno helped me get my third chondro, and ever since then we've been close. But during the pandemic, man, we had this group chat, and we was all kind of stuck in the house, so like we used to talk about chondros, mostly just joking on each other. I remember when Keno found out that I was having my son. Man, this man roasted me for about a good week. So yeah, man, this is my dog for real. And a lot of people they'll ask me like, "Are you really that close?" I'm like, "Nah, bro. Like, I'm really that close to this dude. Like, this is my
Hey,
brother."
true, but y'all not good friends until Tim laugh at you for you almost dying. Then we know how good the friendship is.
Listen, it's like kind of true, but but you gotta put into perspective.
Multiple times, on multiple occasions, Trooper.
That's my brother. I don't want him to die. He just makes funny sounds sometimes when he's in distress. That's my brother for real though. Let's show a picture of Trooper and another one of his friends.
So a cool backstory to this. That's Buddy Getzker, who was another big person in the chondros in the late 90s, early 2000s, and the first host of the Chondro Fest, which then blossomed into Carpet Fest, as you know.
Yeah.
And this particular photo is interesting because the two of them were, so where Buddy lived, he had a built-in swimming pool, and they came up with the idea on the fly that the trooper was going to give away a chondro, but in order to win the chondro, you had to do the most incredible belly flop.
Most painful.
So they had like, I don't know, there was no less than 15 people willing to just put their bellies on the line. So what wound up happening was they all went through once. And then these guys getting together here talking about, well, the thrill's kind of gone now. How can we prolong this thing? So then they almost like Survivor. they made them go again, and they started eliminating one at a time. So the person who wound up winning the chondro wound up doing like 5 belly flops. I mean, his belly was.
I know his chest was red as hell.
Purple.
Hey man, shout out to like the bad ideas that came about in the late '90s, early 2000s when you was wearing a white tee. Nothing good came out of a bunch of dudes in white tees, man.
Oh, they would have prolonged it even more if they could have, man. The winner definitely earned that snake. There's no question about it.
Yes, he did. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. It looks like a good time, man. First of all, man, shout out to Texas Chondro Fest, man. That was a good time. And all the other Chondro Fest, man, that are happening across the U.S. that people are putting on. It's good seeing people try their best to maintain cohesion within the community outside of reptile shows.
Well,
it's good.
Let me back up. I just threw a mistruth out there. Buddy was the second major host of Chondro Fest. Trooper started them back in the early '90s at his own house, and these were just gatherings of both zoo folks and, of course, in the Maryland, Virginia area. It was a hotbed of many of us that were keeping and breeding chondros at the time.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, I really like hearing about that because they're still going on today. People are still hosting them. Yeah. And there's a lot of work that goes into them.
Go ahead, what's fault, Charlie?
No, that was it. I was just saying a lot of work goes into them. So, whatever I see people that are doing the Chondro Fest and the Carpet Fest, man, it's always good to see it.
What sort of things nowadays, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. You have to talk for me, Tim. What questions or issues are now common that, like in the last 10 years, that's been learned about chondros, or questions that are yet to be answered?
Nidovirus.
Nido is a big deal.
Nidovirus still, yeah.
Is that still really a problem? Big problem?
Yeah. Yeah, nidovirus and issues related to certain lines of chondros. What else is a hot topic?
Inbreeding issues. Wild clutch size was a hot topic.
Also
size, feeding chondros, because that seemed to. I guess we could start right there because the feeder, it seemed to take on a life of its own. True, but it got to the point where some people was barely feeding their chondros, and they were against the whole, as you know, it was a point where everything had to be 1,000 grams.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was saying get it to 1,000 grams, and I think people wanted to go so far away from that to the point where they were underfeeding chondros.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've tried to do, me and Travis, is within our collections, try to just bridge a happy medium of, keeping chondros that are slender and, that physique that they got, while also, the ones that have that genetic, makeup to gain size, and we may give them a small adult mouse and, it don't do nothing for them. Well, ain't nothing wrong with having a big chondro sometimes. Some chondros get big,
Well, and some of them
Watch
do
out
just
for the
grow.
big
And,
girls.
as I was mentioning before, the blue female I had, she bred at 2.5 years old. She was, at 1.5 years, she was eating small rats, and she was a big snake. I mean, oftentimes you think of snakes that get pushed. They got the little heads, big bodies. They just don't proportionally look like. I mean, that powder litter that Trooper had.
He said, "Too bad, buddy, don't get the hell no more."
Yeah.
Keep going, Tim.
No, my fault, Tim. My fault.
Some of them are just, they're genetics, I guess, that, they do a lot more with the food they're given than others.
So you said you had a female that was eating small rats you said almost
a year and a half old.
Year and a half old. Yeah.
Small rats.
That's a big female. I got a female that's been eating small rats since 2, and she's big.
Trooper, you remember
Jamaica's like that. Jamaica eats small rats like that. I was thinking about moving her to medium rats.
Remember the thing that Rico brought this up about he did the work with the, what was it, the proportion of calcium, the calcium ratios between rats and mice? Because I think he didn't feed any of his rats. He was all mice.
Yeah, he was all mice. He talked about on that power. It was like a presentation that he did with some college kids. Yeah.
Which
what did you do,
the calcium
Trooper?
ratio would be the other way around, because I would think even small rats are going to have bigger bones and.
Yeah, but it's
Tim,
not
that was always my thinking, Tim. Seriously.
Yeah.
But
do you guys deal with prolapses much these days?
No, I've only dealt with one prolapse, and that was in 2020. And I was with a snake that was well over a year. I've only dealt with it one time. I don't know about Keno.
Nah, I think even before I was breeding, I never had a prolapse. Just when I was a keeper, nah. I've never dealt with one.
I have had it. I had it a second time with a Maruki, who was constantly backed up. Like I think that she had some type of deformity. She never went on time, and then one time she didn't have like a normal prolapse. Her entire guts came out.
Wow!
Like everything came out. So that was like the second time I had a prolapse. But I don't even know if I call it a prolapse. I call it a catastrophic evacuation. And it was no saving her. But yeah, I think there's some prolapses they just happen for different reasons. I'll definitely say that this prolapse probably happened because of an extreme deformity.
Trooper, were you pro rat?
Are most people generally following the wait a year before you sex them?
I think that actually people are waiting longer now. I think that people are actually waiting a lot longer.
Because you had the shed testing too, so you didn't really have to. For a few years there, you didn't have to. You could have paid the extra money and you got the sex 2 months old or something.
Yeah,
but for the most part, people honestly, I've ran into more people that's just waiting out to get a shed confirmation.
Yeah. Like people are waiting longer.
I honestly think that
probing.
I'll say this too.
You guys
now that we said that
thing, was that something you developed, or
now that we bring that up, I think probing has been a lost art because you don't have enough people that know how to do it and that can teach the next generation how to do it. And honestly, I'm one of them ones that don't know how to do it.
I know how to do it.
You pop penises?
I don't think that we're supposed to be popping penises on chondros.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that that's
I got OnlyFans too if you're interested, but
yeah, shut up.
Hey,
but I don't think many people are popping male chondros.
Was that something you developed?
Yeah, I was just wasn't anything specific.
But did you learn the hard way? Like you tried sexing an earlier one and wound up with a kid?
Probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did you wait? What was your method for sexing chondros, Trooper?
Just probing. Yeah, I've never popped them at all.
What was the earliest you probed, Trooper?
Which probe?
Age. What was the youngest age that you?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So also with I think that a lot of people are waiting for sheds, so they're waiting longer. How often do you think that probing was like what you probed it as it stayed that? Like how often do you think that you were successful in determining the sex of probing back then?
Any with your probing technique, how do you think you were?
I can't think of any misprobes on that.
I mean, I think I had a few, but it's hard for me to determine because I would sometimes get called to, collection. Like Greg Stevens was notorious. He would produce 50 chondros, and I would go up one Saturday night and probe like 50 snakes. But because he lost track of them after they left his care, I'm not sure how many were ever missed sex. I know I did a couple, but I don't think there were many. And I probed a lot of things. I helped Cody Bartolini probe a bunch of black mambas and green mambas. That was a fun experience.
Yeah, I'm good on that Black Mama stuff.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I could do that one.
Yeah, well, he did the business part of it. I just probed them. But there was one time, it was in the first one or two where our handoff wasn't as clean as it needed to be. Neither of us were, I don't think, in serious harm's way, but it was one of those things where he didn't have control, I didn't have control. We were like, well, we can't let that happen again, kind of thing. So, yeah, that was interesting. It was fun though. I mean, it was.
I'm too clumsy, Clem. I probably would have died that day. I didn't know
something that I'd never done before, and but I was glad I did it. I mean, it was a good experience, and from what I have heard from him since then, it sounded like they were accurately probed.
Hey, Trooper, how you feeling, man? Oh, I'm sorry, Tim.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. Trooper, how you feeling?
Doing all right.
Okay. I feel like it probably is. So, Trooper, I want to get to some things that we might not have asked. What are some things that you want to tell us that we don't know?
Oh gosh.
And what happened with Chuck Goldman?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, we just let you go. We'll just let you go. Tell us some things that just tell us whatever that we don't know because we weren't there, so we don't know a lot.
A road tripping with Chuck
Does that
Vogel.
strike anything with you?
Not that I remember ever hearing in our conversations.
Yeah.
I mean, just just how things developed, I guess, in terms of gatherings, because that's really how things were shared back then. Were in the gatherings they had. I mean, I guess you went to quite a few of those IHS symposiums. These were the International Herp Symposiums. Yeah.
I do got a question for you, Trooper. How did you feel when the forums first came around?
Chondro Web.
Well, I thought it was good because it brought people together in a way that previous to that, really couldn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy early on. There's just a lot of stuff. With Chondros, there's always controversy. Seems.
Yeah, there's always something.
Yeah.
How did you when you first started breeding at that zoo? Did you okay, well, I'm gonna say with the caveat, we know our community is small. Tree python is a very niche community. But did you know that like your name would be it will hold so much weight that
No
it does
clue.
now, Trooper?
No clue. And to me now, even hearing it is just weird. I was telling Tim last night that I'm just amazed that there's probably thousands of people that have chondros now, and I don't know how many clutches have been produced over the years, but it's really one of the most well-documented species in captivity at this point, especially with record keeping.
Yeah,
record keeping.
And I would say too,
pedigrees.
I would say too, for the people who've never seen you, it's people that can spit lineages off like this, like the back of their hand, but they don't even know who the hell Trooper Walsh is. They know who TW is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I'm learning from Tim information on animals that I'd forgotten so much information about, but he's good at putting it away, storing it away.
I got a question for you, Trooper. So, and we kind of talked about this a little bit. Before there were, locality like specific animals, that wasn't really kept up with. So I want to hear from you about when the localities first started and what the community was like and how that changed how chondros were being bought,
Oh, gosh.
sold, and being tracked.
Well, we were just talking about that last night,
Yeah.
and you know, I remember asking Trooper a number of years ago if he would have to take a guess on where his first chondros came from. He had said it sort of had that sarong look, that green with the blue zipper stripe. And we were talking about the fact that even on the lineages, if you look at the lineages well, I mean, just the lineages in total, the only animal that I ever recall in the lineages I created, and I created a lot, for my own animals that, stem from Trooper and others, but I also did several lineages for Trooper as well. The only animal that it was ever identified by locality was a Biak from the Philly Zoo.
Okay.
So, Trooper and Eugene were both sort of in this wave together where the so-called localities first came in. And some of those I'm not sure were 100% accurately described. Like,
Yeah.
because a lot of that was coming from Cameron. And Cameron a lot of times was maybe getting animals, but then they go to Vladimir, right? And sometimes they would get intermixed in breeding, the farming project. And I'm not sure, that they were necessarily accurately described. Now, Daniel Natush, a few years back, did publish a paper. I don't know if you remember. I've got it somewhere. I have to dig it up.
Please send it to us later. We'll post it. We'll tag you.
Well,
guys.
in this paper, he published, markings of all these different chondros from all over Indonesia.
Yeah, and he went to like all the museums around the United States collecting.
Yeah, I don't know if they were necessarily museum specimens or they might have been.
No, it wasn't only museums. It was he did a lot.
Yeah, but there was there was a
counts,
whole
everything.
image, and so there was just a lot being pieced together. I mean, because honestly, as Patrick pointed out, that Cameron told me this many years ago that there was, Maruki was just a port. There was no suitable habitat for chondros in Maruki proper.
Appreciate it.
And that, chondros could have been collected anywhere in that southern region and just exported out of there. So, I mean, I think the whole locality thing in terms of what we know about it now, and even in terms of, chondros that have come over, that have been purported. I mean, unless they have GPS data, I'm not so sure, you really know 100% what you're getting into. I mean, I think some do have characteristics.
I think the ones that, when I was first getting chondros, I suspect most of them were coming out of one area. They just, why bother going to the ends of the earth, on the islands to get them if there's nothing special. So Cameron is really responsible for bringing that to the attention of the world, really. So,
Trooper, when you okay, so when
I'm gonna
you
show
first
keep going, Keno. I'm gonna show some pictures that Tim sent. Just keep going with your question.
So you said your first 2 or 3 clutches were all yellows. This is the green mamba.
Yeah, so we were talking about sex and green mambas. These are a few pictures of Cody and I.
Jesus was with you that day, Tim. I don't know if you're a believer, but
yeah, these were the green mambas that Cody had hatched out.
The Trooper,
gorgeous animals.
Trooper, you said your first 2 or 3 clutches were all yellows, and you started kind of getting bored. Do you remember what the labels were when you started getting animals that started popping out red stuff for you?
Sorry, what?
Do you remember what those first localities were when you started seeing red animals mixed into your yellow animals?
Well, I couldn't tell you at this point.
Okay, all right.
Sex size going south.
Because it kind of seemed like when y'all were first getting them, that's when, like, it was mostly yellows. Like you said, we just send in what we can get. And then the more you delved into it, then it seemed like you guys start getting res and what you guys call mite phase and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was trying to get like a barometer for when y'all start. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. Well, Trooper had received a couple of the original animals that Swatek brought over. He brought over a gravid female that laid eggs in transit. And those animals or some of those are also are found on the lineages as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And those had res in them?
Well, Trooper, I was just asking. He said they were a mix. They were a mixed litter.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So I got another question in regards to those days of mixed litters. Did you guys switch males out with females a lot when breeding at that point in time, or were you just leaving them together? So that you actually knew, because I know in a lot of cases people say there's no way to tell who fathered the clutch if you're switching males out.
Yeah.
You do multiple males.
Yeah, I've always gone with known, male and female. That is important information to me.
Yeah.
But you can also, as I understand it, you can have, and that's not just with chondros, but you can have a mix of,
a mix of lineage of parentage in that. Well, a mix of father DNA in that clutch, I guess.
Oh yeah, you can have multiple males represented in one clutch, one group. That's only with genetics has that been brought to attention in recent years.
Okay.
You got another question from Chris Rice. He says, "I love to hear memories about Gun, the guy that was breeding and keeping early in Indonesia.
Yeah.
I think it was in Terra, Indonesia, if you recall correctly."
Yeah.
I remember meeting him when I was over there.
You did go to this facility, right?
Yeah, I did. His first facility. Yeah.
So how many of those early farms did you go to, and what were they like?
Yeah.
Well, the only known one I knew of was Cameron's.
Yeah, that's the only one
that was Terraria.
I know there are others.
Yeah, that's Bushmaster's main farm. So how was the quality of that farm when you went there?
How was the what?
The quality
of animals at that farm.
Animals, the upkeep, all that.
They were pretty good. They kept them individually. Most of them were in small plastic containers with water on the bottom. And they'd start off, and I think Cameron, even to this day, start them off on lizards, it's because it's easier,
Yeah.
So, and I've never done that.
So it was nothing. So if you had gotten an animal from Cam, it was nothing that you saw on that farm that would make you dissuade you from buying from him?
What up, Chris?
No, not really.
Okay.
He's one of the few people that I trust that, are importing things there. So,
okay.
And he kept the documentation on things, which with a lot of zoos, you need to have that, to take a wild animal into the collection.
Yeah.
Do you know if he's still around? Tim was telling me that Bushmasters is out of business.
No, they still in business, but someone bought the business. So I don't think Cameron is not an active owner anymore.
Yeah, I don't think Cameron's doing it anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Huh.
Yeah, I think it's strictly reptiles bought it, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
Yeah, things have changed. I mean,
it was a couple years ago. Yeah.
I mean, it's a good thing that it was in his hands for a long time. But if you really think of it, it was around for a long time in his hands.
Yeah.
But just like everything else in life, things change. I'm pretty sure there's probably some people that probably miss going to the zoo and seeing you there, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, shit, we got another picture from Tim.
What was that?
We got another picture from Tim.
Oh.
I'm put it up real quick. This is Old Yeller?
That's Old Yeller.
I'm not
So
seeing
let
it.
me get it up. Let me get it up real
Taken
quick.
in December of '94.
Hey,
I
Patrick
remember
just had
December of '94.
Patrick just had some animals. I think last year with
Ooh, that's
trace back to this
cold.
animal.
Ooh, that's cold.
Yeah. The first outcrosses.
And
Well,
that had
very
the
nice.
Philly Zoo Biak blood in it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Which
That's
again,
I love the white. I love the
locality
white
specific.
flowers. Those look so nice.
And these were some of the six.
It's a tricolor. That's a quad color, brother. You
Yeah.
got 4 colors on that thing.
Here's some of the litter mates coming to you, Trav. You can post them if
That's
you want.
fire. And that's a yellow Neo too.
Hold on. I see it now. It just came in. It's just oh yeah. It's
Hey, Adam
one,
Sally, if I'm
two.
not mistaken, Sally, don't you got an animal? I think it traced back to this animal. That Patrick offspring.
There you go. Okay, let me get them up.
Do the same thing.
Oh,
Okay.
Tim, can you post that picture of Carolina?
Caroline?
Yeah.
Carolina.
Carolina. Yeah, hang on. I have it
She's
somewhere
the
here.
definition of the word.
This.
All right.
No, I saw it.
I haven't sent it yet, so hang on a second. I'll let you know when I do.
So this is a beautiful animal.
So
They
all
got
the
nice
ones I
size
just
too.
mentioned, Travis, are the are litter mates to Old Yeller, just to give you an idea of just how
Jaeger does
the
too. Okay.
clutch was.
Oh.
That look like a male.
Okay. All right, we back. Hold on. We got another picture from Tim.
Oh yeah. I'm about to say. yeah.
And I
Jaeger do
just
trace
sent
back to the side.
Carolina. You'll see it. She's
He got an all yellow lens, tree
yellow
blue eye.
bridge.
Okay. Signal head profile.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. There you go. What animal is this?
Hang on, which one is it? That was a litter mate to Old Yeller.
Okay.
Yeah,
This
that
red
clutch
Neo.
was quite a clutch.
All right, we got Carolina coming up. All right.
That's a yellow. That's a
Yeah,
red Neo.
Carolina, you'll
Yeah.
see the name below the picture.
I've probably been asked for pictures of this snake by dozens of people over the years, so maybe they'll see them on your podcast here. This is Carolina.
Yeah. If y'all see her, if y'all see Linda's chart, if it says CARO instead of Carolina, that's the same thing. It's the same snake.
Yeah.
And Trooper was one of the first to start naming his animals too. We had a little conversation about that earlier today.
Oh, Trooper, where you get the damn names from? There, how'd you start that? You just started some that.
He was mentioning that he
some
felt like
crazy
people
names
could
out here.
relate to them more than just if
Yeah.
as opposed to them just being referred to as an accession number.
Yeah, what I always identify them by an accession number.
Okay.
But people like to hear names. That sticks with them better. So actually, most of the animals I had, and there weren't that many I had named, but they're actually
Carolina went straight to blue, right?
Yeah. Boy, she's a pretty snake.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning.
It's just amazing what the color variances for these things. They're so amazing.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest factors in why lineage has been kept on chondros as opposed to other snakes. And I'm pretty sure there's lineage on other reptiles, is not to the extent of chondros.
Yeah.
Right.
But that snake is, I've seen pictures of Carolina. Carolina for ever since I've been in chondros. I've certain snakes, snakes that you're just gonna see them forever. So, that's why we say trooper people still making money off your name. If your lineage chart says Trooper Walsh on it, you can get a pretty penny. It's even people saying weird stuff about your name being on lineage charts, and people got to go back and try to verify it.
Queer, that
These are,
OC stand for outcross.
I've seen this over the years where people be like, "It's got Trooper Walsh blood in it," and
Yeah.
people just like, "I don't believe that," and then
Yeah, I've had
arguments
a lot
ensue.
I had a lot of people over the years that call up and want to know something, and is their lineage is it correct? And I tell them, unless you got my data cards that go along with the animal, there's no way. There's people
don't know, man.
use my name to put in there.
So it don't have my certificate of approval, so I can't tell you nothing about it. Somebody got that down at the swap meet or something, down at the farmer's market. I don't know where you got that lineage.
What was your last year keeping, Troop?
What was the what?
What was your last year of keeping? Like, what was your last year you just got rid of everything? Like, I'm tired of this.
Last chondro
That I hatched?
that you left your house.
The absolute last one.
It's I want to say 2012, maybe.
Wow.
Do you remember, was it an adult, baby, anything about it?
It's probably a yearling, something like that. Because when I became ill, so many of my animals I had to give away.
Do you still miss it sometimes, or have you?
Oh yeah.
Have you? Hey, look, I enjoyed my ride.
Especially when I got someone like Tim around, and he's showing me all these pictures. I saw animals. Tim was showing me pictures of animals I didn't even recognize. Like, where did that come from?
Well, that's what happens when you don't look at things like that for a while. Things almost can be almost absent from your mind, and then you see it, and you're like, wow, and then over time, start remaking the connection.
Prolific as Trooper producing so much.
We're slowly working them back in. We got a couple annulateds down here now, and a few black rats.
Tim's forcing them on me.
Hey, he's trying to force you back into the game. He about to put that Wizards 23 jersey on you, about to make you come back in the game like Jordan.
The old MJ, old Jordan, yeah.
He said he gonna force you back on the court like in Space Jam. You ain't got no choice.
Gonna get out here with that. He gonna get out with that 5-inch vert.
You gotta be taking them jump shots for Tim. But I think the thing about a lot of this stuff is like you've done so much that you probably don't necessarily remember every instance, and it takes other people to tell you, give you little snapshots in time about the things that you did in those periods of time.
Yeah.
And like one of the things I want to talk to you about is like all this stuff, because you heavily influence Rico's collection. So I want to talk to you about the things that you did with Rico.
Yeah. We last 10 years we did a lot of stuff together, and we put the Chondro Coalition together. It was just a means, it wasn't like it didn't have to be fancy breeders. It's just people that are breeding these animals, after breeding them, bring them together as a group. It was interesting. After we did the first Chondro Coalition, the next year you were having gecko coalitions and, this, that, and the other, just, offshoots to sell their animals.
But you guys started it though.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably rather successful to see them do it.
Trav, I ain't gonna lie, Trav. That really hit home with us, because that's what we do here. We not only do we welcome the seasoned breeder, but you only got to breed. You can be a keeper. So,
what other animals do you guys work with?
Children, human children, little children that look like me, and I can't go into a courtroom and say,
I have some monitors, stupid, but I don't got no more animals. I got all chondros right now. I want a black monitor, though. I want a black monitor.
Yeah, that's what he wants. He wants to leave it at my house. That's
No, I'm gonna get both of us one. I'm just gonna buy him one and send it to him.
he's gonna send me the female and make me breed it in my house.
Yeah, there you go.
That's his goal. Look at his face. He's not even gonna show you his face. But I want to talk to you about the Chondro Coalition and the things with Rico, because a lot of this that I've seen from YouTuber is like you picked really good people to pass the torch to. Tim is one of the great people, and Rico is one of those great people. So do you want to? Can you tell us anything about some of his projects that you know you directly influenced?
Yeah, I will say that the people I work with, whether it's at the zoo or privately, if I can't develop what I feel is a good relationship with them, it's just like, okay, I don't need that. So that's why when you got someone like Rico or Tim, you see people are genuinely interested in the animals and in sharing information and such. That's what I gravitate towards. With Rico, I think the last project we were working on was the albino project, because I turned that over to him a couple of years before he died, I guess. What else?
Midas. I remember Midas, yeah.
Have you guys seen pictures of Midas?
I haven't.
I do. I remember that clearly.
So this was a picture of a trooper from 77 or 78.
Yeah.
The early days of the zoo that came out of a book that I just happened.
I ain't gonna lie, Trooper, man. I see you always had a locks, man, on the hair side.
What you saying, Tim?
What's that?
I was asking what were you saying?
Well, I was just saying that I was down here a couple of weeks ago, and in the morning I got up a little bit early, and I just stumbled upon this old book that was published in 1978 on the National Zoo, and I'm thumbing through it, and there he is. And Trooper was telling me about how they were trying to publish this book, and they were literally, photographers were following him around for several days on end, which was kind of a cumbersome thing to work around. But
you got to be real careful about going through people's old books, man. You might find a picture that you never want to see. Your auntie.
It's always been treasure trove stuff.
I imagine that it is so over there. So Tim and Trooper, can y'all give us more information about some other guys that are linked to you guys that you guys have worked with? I know Chuck Vogel. I don't know if we went and said anything particular about Chuck Vogel, but I know Chuck Vogel because Chuck Vogel and Rico were close,
right?
And do you? Can I ask you this question? I don't know if you answer this, but did you ever go to Chuck Vogel's shack in the woods?
No. No, I just knew it.
They both said no.
What's the story about this shack, and what's so funny about that?
Listen, I would send you a video. Chuck Vogel talking about.
You gotta go watch the first Chuck Vogel episode when he ain't have no laptop.
Yeah, and he had no filter about his shack in the woods, man. We'll send you the video, man.
Talk about things you probably don't want to learn about, right?
Yeah, man. We feel like, Chuck Vogel, we had a real, how your mom got that uncle she don't let you talk to? Chuck Vogel was that uncle that mom don't let you talk to. But yeah, so could you tell us more about some other guys that you worked with in the past that went on to do great things, Trooper?
Gosh. Well, people mostly working with Komodo dragons are what I see, at least at this day.
So I know that in the Memphis Zoo we have Komodo dragons in Memphis,
right?
And it seems like there's not as many of them as you would think there are. I know that here in Texas there's a few. Shout out to the Reptarium Is it the Reptarium? What is the name of the reptile zoo in Texas that has the one that
Fort
they had
Worth?
Chondro? They just had Chondro Fest there.
Oh,
Let me look it up. Let me
interesting.
look it up real quick. Reptile Zoo, Texas. Reptilandia. They have them in Reptilandia. Thanks, Glenn. So I think that I do want to talk more about these Komodo dragons. And how did you breed Komodo dragons?
Very
Doug said
carefully.
with glisten.
Again, it was all trial and error. We didn't keep them together initially because there was quite a size difference between the male and the female. They got along. I know a number of zoos have had animals that just get torn up, but they get torn up in the wild. They just heal really well. They have an incredible immune system.
Yeah.
So
They fight a lot.
They do. Yeah. Especially over territory.
So how many Komodos were you able to keep in a single enclosure?
I pretty much kept them singly. In Indonesia, one of the zoos I visited, they just had them all chunked in together, but I suspect they lose babies occasionally.
So,
I think.
Right.
Adults.
So,
babies.
Oh, my bad, Tim.
No, it's just
go ahead.
Add a little bit.
So Tim, I got a question for you, man. So I know you work real closely with Trooper. Do you know anybody that were your peers that you worked closely with that may have had animals from Trooper, like your good friend Oak Dog, or
I got tons. You got Jimmy, you got Christian and Sean, you've got Danny Brado, Greg Stevens, John Holland.
Yeah.
Who else I throw in that list?
Robin.
Well, Robin, I didn't sell to her, but
I see.
but Robin would be one. Saunders. Who else is in there? This guy Jack Sadovnik back in the day. Another good friend of mine, Tom Morello, who got into it for a period of time.
Getzker. Buddy Getzker.
Yeah, Buddy Getzker.
We got a large condo community here for a number of years.
There was, quite a few. And then, of course, Mark Twigg out in Missouri. Trying to think of some.
Paul.
Oh, Buddy Buscemi. My God, how can I forget?
Yeah, shout out to Buddy Buscemi.
Yep.
Listen.
Buddy was another one. Yeah.
Our man Sal wants to hang out with Oak Dog, Tim.
Who's that?
Sal from Cryptic Chondros out in the UK.
Yeah.
He said he would like to have a night out with Jamie and Oak Dog Paul.
He wants to get blottoed.
Yeah, like Jimmy. Well, I'm hoping you can see now why I cut him off the social media feed. He's
when y'all were doing that, I was just like, what the hell is this? Because he was like, who is this person here? And I'm just like, I was like, y'all are best friends and don't follow each other on social media. That's weird. In the same chat, I was just like, man, this is some old friendship type shit right here.
Yeah. I needed some peace.
He said, I can see Oak Dog was antagonizing you, man. So I told him to stop, but I don't think he listens to anybody.
Nah, he knows. We do a lot of that, man. That's whenever we go down to Florida, it's 75% just antagonizing me, antagonizing him, antagonizing Andy. It's all good fun.
Don't give Andy a mental breakdown. Don't be antagonizing Trooper either. So Trooper, I gotta ask you this question, man, about the status of chondros, because I know you don't know as much. I know you don't know as much as much as going on, but Do you feel that what you did for the chondro community was very beneficial?
Yeah, I do. In that, making it more high profile to more people, you can learn more things, ask more questions.
Brother,
So,
can you not do
Good.
that?
He's talking to his son. So I know that there's a lot of people that still love you, Trooper. What's some things that you want to tell them? Like some things in terms of like, you know, things that you would tell somebody that you were actually mentoring.
well, I was talking to Tim about this back when I was studying. I'm fascinated by artificial incubation, all kinds of animals, and by using one of these laser pointed things, I could tell the surface temperature of the eggs after like day. This is off the top of my head. I don't remember if this is the right day, but like by day 20, those eggs are generating their own heat, like 2 or 3 degrees Fahrenheit difference in the surroundings, which that's you could say that's warm blooded.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing.
So with that, when it comes to maternal incubation, do you think that that's something that you need to monitor? Is that why you guys are saying that you want to keep them at a lower temp?
I would keep them. I would whenever I do a maternal incubation, I always had an incubator set up in case if we all just left the eggs or something was the problem. So,
Tim, man, do you got anything you want to tell us about Trooper that we didn't get around to asking?
We covered a lot of bases here, for the first go around, I think.
Yeah, but I think you still know some stuff that we forgot because you know them better.
I can tell you some shark stories.
Yeah, tell us some shark stories. We like Shark Week.
All right. I lived in Panama for a while, and after we left, we came back to visit. I went down to visit with my dad for a couple of weeks. And in a 2-week period, I had 3 encounters with sharks that scared the shit out of me. The first ones, what happened? Yeah, I was in a 32-foot sailboat going around in the Pacific off Panama. And I was diving off in about 15 feet of water, got to the bottom and looked up, and there's a tiger shark. I thought it was coming at me. It might have been going at the fishes, whatever, but it scared me. I did the absolute worst thing you do is, panic and, go to the surface. But fortunately, nothing happened. Second time,
Are you lucky, Trooper? Because them tiger sharks out there, they notorious for attacking people.
What was that?
I said you lucky because them tiger sharks are notorious for attacking people.
Well, the second time we're in Lake Uton, which feeds the Panama Canal, and we're in a small motorboat, a rowboat with a motor on the back, basically. And I just kind of, flip my foot flap in the water, feeling it bounces and such. And all of a sudden, the guy who was running the boat, who just spoke no English, started screaming. And there were 2 sharks, probably bull sharks, 10 feet behind our boat. And that scared me. But the worst was
they about to get some white meat
on that same boat. I was at the helm for a time, and I looked over, and the boat was about 32 feet. I can't tell you exactly, but this shark was probably at least 15 feet long, literally right up against the boat, just watching me. And that was terrifying. That's scary to me. Sharks.
No, go ahead.
Sharks are one of the few animals I have innate fear from. They're just too perfect at what they do.
Well, that's me there, true.
Right.
And is that one of the bull sharks or?
No, that was a great white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trevor, you lived a life with wildlife that most people dream of.
It's been a different experience here and there.
I ain't gonna lie though. I ain't never dreamed about being almost attacked by no sharks.
Yeah.
So guys, I'm about to send you, Travis, a few other pictures you may want to send or post up here.
Yeah, I'll post whatever you guys got, man.
I'm digging into deep archives here.
No, he did.
Tim,
Hey, he did
Tim,
live a movie though.
Tim, did I tell you I think I talked to somebody and like I remember I got a call from you or something and it came back as like being in Severn. And I was just like, I used to go to Severn all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you mentioned that, I think, at some point.
Yeah, I was just like, I used to go to Severn all the time. I used to live in Hellthorpe, well, Arbutus.
Yeah, I lived there in Hellthorpe. I had a church there right by UMBC.
Yeah, I lived over there for a time. I missed
Arbutus sound like one of them southern cousins.
Arbutus was right there.
Yeah, so like we had mail that came in. Some of it said Hellthorpe, but some of it said Arbutus.
Yeah. I mean, where I live now is not far from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I know where Severn is. It's not very far at all. But just to think, man, I was close to Tim. I could have probably went over to his crib and didn't even know it. And this was only when I had one chondro.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find these pictures that I sent them on.
So Trooper, man, in regards to like the rainbow boas, man, could you tell us more about the rainbow boas and like when people started like keeping and breeding rainbow boas in the U.S.?
Yeah. Well, I got into rainbows. I had a friend that went down to South America and collected emeralds, rainbows, and other things. And I got some babies from someone else had gotten the adults and had bred them. So I raised those up, and I probably had about 20 at one point, and I put some at the zoo, so there was a good zoo stock. I'd always heard that there are these nasty, horrible animals, and that captive raising was like so many other animals, are just they're docile, they're fine, they're great snakes to play with. So we bred a lot of them in the late 70s, I guess, early 80s.
So at that point in time, when did they start making their way into the pet trade in the U.S.?
Well, I guess you could say they were already in the pet trade because the adults were brought in and sold.
Okay.
But in terms of the what's available now and later, gosh, I guess there are people like Hank Malt. He had some. There's just random. I'd only seen one or two in my life, prior to getting these.
Hold on, we got more incoming pictures from Tim.
Yeah, and that collection I just sent you is a picture of Midas.
Okay.
That was a great snake. Are you putting these up?
He is. I just texted him to him.
I'm putting them in now. Okay, so I think that this first one, when it shows, is going to be Midas.
Yeah, it's Midas.
So this one's Midas. Could you tell us a little bit about Midas?
That's one of the greatest snakes I ever had, not just in terms of color, but their personality. I think it took a meal before its first shed, which is unusual. It's just a great animal. I was really sorry to see him go.
What else we got? Well, I think that, we all have those animals that we'll never forget them. And that just might be Midas.
Hey, Midas is albino chondro, by the way. That's albino. That's not a high yellow, y'all.
Yeah.
So could you tell us about the difference between an albino and a high yellow chondro?
Well, it's like difference between albinism and melanism. They're just different categories of the snakes.
Yeah.
Well, and this snake actually, if you zoom in on it, actually had, pink pupils.
Yeah, it's a recessive trait.
Yeah, the albino chondros don't have black pupils.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the only for sure way you can tell.
That's the main difference. Yeah.
Oh, you got another picture of Midas coming in. So this is I think that this picture will show it a little bit better.
Yeah, I'll go look at that animal that Marshall Mendez just produced about a year ago. The first few pictures he take real close, seeing the eye pupils to show y'all that it wasn't no black pigmentation in there.
Do you know if he was able to raise up any of the albinos he's produced?
I think it's currently in the process of it.
No, he said the oldest animal that he got. None of the albinos have reached breeding age. I think 2 years old, maybe about 2 years old was the oldest he got before passed away.
But he just had one this year.
Well, no, he had one last year. No, he talking about. He said, no, what he said was, he asked, do we know how old the albino he was able to raise up? So the oldest one I think was about 2.5. I know he had one last year. Probably creeping up on a year old now, something around there.
Yeah, I was real excited to see a red albino. I had no idea what that was going to look like.
Yeah, I think of the ones he has, though, he hasn't ever been able to get one to breeding age yet.
Tim, what's that?
This was the craziest looking maroon I ever produced that turned just plain green.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. Damn, he turned plain green?
Yep.
Wow.
It goes under the category you're just never going to know what you get, because I used to get, it's funny, when I was breeding things
I would have
back
never thought that about the snake.
I would frequently get requests from people when they're buying a baby, pick me out one that's going to turn blue, pick me out one that's going to be, calico or and I'm like, man, if I could predict that, I wouldn't be selling any of these.
So here's the question. How many, what was the highest offer that you turned down for this snake?
I don't remember.
The highest what?
Offer that you turned down.
Probably from Buddy Getzker. He paid a lot of money for a couple of my snakes.
Yeller he paid for, or Daddy Pants.
Daddy Pants, right.
Yeah.
Like $25,000.
Yeah.
Damn.
And computers.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a good day.
Let's talk about this one.
He woke up and hit the lottery.
That's a Northern Emerald. That was at National Zoo.
Is that
an odd looking? It's an odd looking northern.
Is that a cross?
It's a
Is that a northern basin cross?
Very unique.
Okay.
That's an adult animal.
Yep.
It looked like it's a hybrid between the two. Yeah.
We got Trooper. What was going on here, Trooper?
Right, Trooper. What happened about an hour before you took this?
You gotta have a little fun in life, or it's not worth it.
Okay.
Wow. Oh, what else we got here?
This is you probably blotto on that picture.
He was hanging out with Oak Dog. Is that a chondro, baby?
That's an emerald.
Wow.
That's an emerald.
That's a baby in the wild.
To me. Not a very high resolution picture, but
yeah.
Trooper, man, you I think that you outdone us all. Like it's wonderful being able to see pictures that old. I think the oldest pictures we've seen from anybody else may have been in the 80s. But
Yeah, you
Trooper, like,
the go for that rap pick though, Trooper.
Yeah.
Well, Trooper, we about to hit 3 hours, so I want to let you get off anything that you haven't told us.
All right. Well, talk again. Other things come up. If you get any feedback from folks. I've enjoyed this. A really nice meeting both you guys.
We enjoyed it, and we appreciate you. I think that also we appreciate Tim because Tim was able to talk through things and really help us
For sure.
understand certain
Yeah.
things. Tim's also like he's a magical guy.
He is.
Despite what Opdal says,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna let him talk about Tim like that in my presence or in my or in my chat groups. I'm not gonna let Opdal do it. I'm not gonna let him troll you.
Nah, Tim is a great friend of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you, Tim.
Jimmy's awesome, man. I love that guy, man.
And Trooper too, man. Trooper, we
Yeah, we
appreciate
like
you
it.
coming on, finding a few hours for us. We really
got it.
appreciate you.
Take care.
Listen,
I saw
we
I
appreciate
don't know if you
y'all.
saw the comments, but you was a big hit tonight, Trooper.
Yeah,
Right.
Well, that's good to
yeah.
know.
People love you, Trooper. Listen, we
Hey,
appreciate Trooper.
You had people showing up that ain't been on our show in like 3 years.
That's a wonderful thing. We appreciate you, Trooper. We appreciate you, Tim.
Yeah,
Thank
it's great
y'all for
getting on with
coming
you
up.
guys. I'm glad
Yeah,
we're
for sure.
finally able to get it to happen, and hopefully some people learn some things, and those
I
that
think
have
people
never
learned a
met
lot of
Trooper in
things.
person, kind of get a feel for
Living, talking,
history.
You ain't learning off these
walking,
episodes.
breathing
Something wrong with
legend.
you.
Yeah, I think I learned a lot tonight. I learned a lot. I don't even know where to start. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this episode several
I
times.
know he was there.
Well, again, if you got more questions or whatever, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
We will.
Yeah.
If we
that'd be fun.
if we could get you back again, listen, we will gather more questions.
Good. Let's do that.
We'll get you a
All
lot
right.
more.
Cool.
Don't
All
take
right,
that
y'all.
with a good time, Trooper. I'm just saying, brother.
Yeah, we got it.
Gentlemen, you guys have a happy holidays, huh?
Yeah, really. Merry Christmas.
You too.
You too.
Merry
Happy
Christmas
holidays.
to everybody, to y'all,
Trooper,
to y'all families.
And Tim, everybody out there, we appreciate
we was
it.
able to bring y'all this Christmas gift, man, on behalf of the bar room. We know this episode was done with no promo and nothing. This was for the people who I guess just pay attention to the show on YouTube, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
They'll be shocked when they see it on your timeline there, right?
Yeah.
For sure. You know what? You gonna have some people wake up like, what happened?
What?
Hey.
That's what we like to do, man. That's what we like to do.
Yeah.
A Christmas
Keep
miracle.
people on their toes,
Shout out to Tim, man.
Hey, man.
Shout out.
Chondro Bar Room Christmas special. What do you?
Yeah.
They should have known not to drift away from YouTube for too long.
They couldn't. They really
Tell
couldn't.
them, Tim.
Might have missed it, right?
Yeah, and even Opdal, listen, you gotta listen. If you feel like you need to fight Opdal, I'm gonna hold him down and let you get a few punches on him.
No, hold on, brother.
I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see the.
I'm not gonna let y'all jump Opdal now, brother. We can't let that.
Listen. You don't know, bro. He was trolling Tim yesterday or the day before yesterday.
He was.
Yeah, he was. In a chat, like we had a chat because I was asking him about something else. But yeah.
But Opdal deserved to get the pause put on the brother.
Well, I got tired of him polluting my inbox on Instagram, so I had to cut him off. So Travis had hit the both of us up, and Jimmy came up as an anonymous user. I'm like, yeah, that's Jimmy these days. He's anonymous.
I was like, wait. I was like, what the hell is this?
Travis is texting me on the side, like, what the hell's going on between you guys? I'm like, that's all good. Just friends being friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's all it is. But that's been us for the CBR.
Mm-hmm.
Special thanks to Trooper. Special thanks to Tim. And we're out. Merry Christmas, y'all.
Merry Christmas, y'all. Thank you,
Take
Trooper.
care,
Thank you,
Tim.
Tim.
Great seeing y'all.
To the next
Peace,
show. See y'all later.